It is your PrisonPlanet.tv memberships that fund so much of what we do here on this operation. And then we're more than happy for the TV show after it's aired live, then be leaked out onto the web to tens of millions of people. That's our goal. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the 15th day of July, 2013, on this live Monday edition. And Lord willing, we'll be here for the next 3 hours. And we are going to take phone call after phone call interspersed with amazing medical news, pro-life news, our criminal hijacked government funding Al-Qaeda, publicly big developments on that front in the first and second hour. And then Mike Zullo will be joining us in studio. And Mike is, of course, the head of Sheriff Arpaio's cold case posse. And he's going to be in studio with us coming up in the third hour here in Austin, Texas. Now, obviously, I'm going to open the phones up on the whole Trayvon Martin situation. But I want to open the phones up first in the first hour for the type of people that are all over Infowars.com. It is a minority. It's a small number of people compared to the thousands of other comments. But there are hundreds of comments out of tens of thousands saying, I need to be killed. Not just Zimmerman needs to be killed, and that the police all need to be killed, and that the jurors need to be killed, and the jurors need to commit suicide. And, of course, you're seeing a lot of celebrities, black celebrities, say things like this. And it is such a disgusting spectacle that it makes me physically nauseous. Physically nauseous to see things like this unfolding, and how it still shows the dinosaur media with the government can change the subject. Whether Zimmerman did it in cold blood or not, I think there was reasonable doubt, just like with O.J. or so many other cases. And if there's reasonable doubt, you must acquit. You must find not guilty. And that's just how law works. And the way the media can try to inject all this racial tension, and you'll never hear anything out of the NAACP or the establishment black leadership that's run by the globalist about AFRICOM killing tens of thousands of innocent people a year, or destroying Libya, or committing all these crimes, or the Al-Qaeda forces they put in to control Libya, killing 40-plus thousand people, most of them blacks, because some of the Wahhabist Arabs are very, very racist. No, the only racism that can exist is white Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, or Catholic, or whatever. Just if you're a white guy and you speak clear English, you're the devil. And it's just a diversion. I know it's fun to hate for some people out there. It's fun for the ignorant Klan and groups. But the Klan does not have MSNBC and Al Sharpton behind them. And it's meant to keep people in their own welfare-controlled, dependency-controlled, where basically all people in the inner city, from what I see in the culture that's put out, do is feel victimized and create a culture of separateness, which is done in the name of multiculturalism and liberalism. So you see how the eugenicist, fake liberal racists have deployed this. It's actually a stroke of genius. In fact, the Aryan nations, the white supremacists, all those groups really should love the Democratic Party and should love MSNBC, because what it does is cause total division and balkanization, where people then segregate themselves. And for that, I am called a racist. We're pointing out that 63% of the abortions in Texas are minorities, similar numbers in Florida or New York. That is racist. For pointing out that Obama, that the black unemployment has doubled under Obama. That's on record. That is racist. So here, I won't be racist. Put Zimmerman in jail, Put more fluoride in the black drinking water supply. Abort more black babies. Now we'll get an NAACP award. Ladies and gentlemen, we are live. It is Monday, the 15th day of July 2013. And we are going to have open phones and a ton of news throughout the broadcast for you today. And then we're going to have the head of Sheriff Joe Arpaio's cold case posse, Mike Zullo, in studio with us to break down his multi-year investigation of who Obama really is. And then there's no doubt we don't know who he is, and that birth certificate is a fake. There's no doubt. And you always hear these establishment folks out there saying, don't look at this, don't investigate it. It's kooky, don't go there. We didn't buy 2 billion bullets. We're not spying on the press with the NSA. The border bill is secret. You can't see it, but it doesn't give amnesty. And then we get the bill and it has amnesty. Obama didn't run guns into Mexico to blame the Second Amendment. And then the memos come out that indeed they did. On and on and on. Oh, the government isn't funding Al-Qaeda. Oh, the government is funding Al-Qaeda. All of this has come out. And I've actually got a clip I'm going to play later in the broadcast today from the 5 Friday on Fox, where they say, how dare these people support the fact saying that one of the brothers, the surviving brother, the patsy in the Boston bombing, how dare him plead not guilty, and how dare there be a group saying that he was set up? I mean, because we've been told after they shot him up in the boat and tried to kill him, and then the press got a video feed of the boat, so they weren't able to make sure he was dead. Then he climbed out talking, and then suddenly had his throat cut out, and it looks like he's been tortured pretty bad. We know his brother was working for the CIA. That's come out. That's been confirmed. Back of the newspaper. And you've got a drill going on with the stand down, and their friends being executed by the FBI, and FBI agents involved in investigating, and their arrest are falling out of helicopters. And now, I was watching C-SPAN last Friday, and they were having hearings with the police chief of Boston, and they had some other Homeland Security people there, and they said, oh no, we need robots everywhere looking for bombs and checkpoints and responses to IEDs. And it's the rollout of get ready for the domestic bombings. It's going to happen. This is how you bring in martial law if you're a foreign offshore crime syndicate that's hijacked the country. So I'm going to be getting into that after phone calls in the middle of the next hour. I'm going to look at what's happened with the Boston bombing, because he's pled not guilty. He's pled not guilty. And that's because he's at least getting somewhat of a trial and hasn't been disappeared to Gitmo, which they tried to do. Where, oh, he says he did it. Of course, we torture people, but hey, I mean, North Vietnam tortured our pilots and they confessed, and the good guys torture. No, the good guys don't torture. Torture's only good for fake confessions. That is a well-known historical fact. It's only good to terrorize the public. Are you saying our government has corrupt elements in it? I mean, what's wrong with torture? See how far we've gone? They've now announced that a few weeks ago, it only hit the news today, the law was repealed that we've had since the 40s, that you can't have domestic propaganda pointed at the people by the Pentagon and by the federal government using taxpayer money. And in the article I saw that I'm going to get to, they're saying things like, what's the big deal? I mean, we have other governments pointing propaganda at us, RT, Al Jazeera. What's wrong with having government propaganda pointed at you here in America? In fact, here's the article. U.S. repeals propaganda ban, spreads government-made news to Americans. Ladies and gentlemen, when you turn on, this is one of the biggest issues. When you turn on the nightly news, and the messages are anti-gun, anti-liberty, anti-freedom, anti-constitutional republic, anti-family, anti-Second Amendment, anti-common decency. You know what the propaganda message is. And it's come out for 70 years that Hollywood's been involved in propaganda. But now it is overtly anti-human, anti-freedom, and is basically weaponized culture. weaponized media pointed at the American people. And it's a big whitewash article put out by Foreign Affairs, a division of the Washington Post. Kurt Nimmo cuts to the heart of it with his article up on Infowars.com. CIA will now openly propagandize Americans. Smith-Mundit Act reformed this month, allowing CIA to disseminate propaganda. Yeah, it's not just the CIA. Remember, Congress ruled in the Congressional Accounting Office, and they had several other investigations, that it was illegal to use government money to try to get government legislation passed, because the legislation is supposed to come from the states and the representatives that are elected there, not from the central government using our tax money to try to affect the general public. That makes the government itself the propagandist with the upper hand to sell the takeover of society. Every authoritarian country has a state-run media. And it's been done here really intensely the last 30, 40 years, intensifying. Before it was outwardly focused with the Cold War, but that propaganda comes back domestically. Now it's being focused in and directed against the American people and the American system and the Bill of Rights itself. It's openly being directed against the Constitution, against the Declaration of Independence, against any form of check and balance. It is so over the top in its extremism that it staggers and beggars the mind. There are no words to describe. And anytime this stuff comes out, a micron of it will come out. In 1 year, the executive branch controlled by Bush, which is not supposed to be able to appropriate money and then direct it. Congress does that and then orders the executive to implement through the bureaucracy. So you have a separation of powers. But in 1 year, $8 billion was spent by the federal government to promote No Child Left Behind. $8 billion in 1 year that the executive had in its propaganda slush funds on one program to federalize education. That's what it really was. And to get kids into the government trap when they're 3 years old, not 5 years old. God forbid they get any influence from their parents. But parents aren't even parenting. It's television anyways. But they want to get their hands on them medically, get the vaccines in them, get the GMO in them, get them on the state-run path to identify with the state as mommy and daddy. And you remember the commentators that came out, the different radio hosts, different TV hosts, different journalists, different syndicated columnists that you never hear about anymore. Who was it? Armstrong Williams, who got $244,000. Let's pull that up, guys. Armstrong Williams, paid by White House, and it was secret. And then basically he was discredited, the media said, after it came out, that he was given $244,000 under the table just to write a couple news articles as a black conservative to sell conservatives on accepting what Bush was doing. And again, it wasn't even Bush. Yeah, there it is. Columnist dropped by syndicator over education department payments. And excuse me, I hadn't looked at that in about 5 years. It was $240,000, not $244,000. See, my memory distorts. When I was like younger than 30, it was photographic most of the time. Now, as you get older and brain cells die, I've noticed it's distorting. Like I said, okay, I believe that the British East India Company was founded 400 years ago. And I was incorrect when they looked it up last week. It was 401 years ago. See the distortion? I'll say Bloomberg and AP reported that Wells Fargo Wachovia laundered $376 billion in 2 years. And it was $378 billion. Why did I shave $2 billion? I don't know. I don't know. He was paid, why did I just add $4,000? He was paid $240,000 secretly by fake neocon conservatism, and then they use that coming out as a reign of terror to make all the other writers and journalists get scared so that they would then go and sign national security agreements to actually be spies for for the Pentagon, CIA, FBI, other departments of Homeland Security. Oh, yeah, you didn't know that? Under Project Mockingbird, and that's just an old system, most of the major editors, most of the major writers are actually doubling under InfraGard-type programs as assets of different federal agencies, themselves run by foreign offshore banks. We ain't in Kansas anymore. And I only use the Armstrong-Williams case, just like I'll use giving smallpox blankets to Indians to talk about biowarfare. It's something most people know about. There are thousands of admitted examples. When you go see a movie and there's an anti-male thing presented or an anti-family thing, or the male's always an idiot and the mom's always the boss, that is to model. Humans model, just like dogs model off the behavior they see. So they model so that you go around, and women, when you go into a trendy area, they don't talk to men, waitresses, waiters, cops, bureaucrats. They talk to the woman. Men aren't even to be talked to or listened to as slaves. You've heard this before, the house slaves of the women. Unless you work for the government, then you're a hyper male in a uniform to be worshipped as the god. But the only male role model is of the state. The state is the husband. All right, I'm going to go to your phone calls in the next segment. We're going to get New York TV newsman Lionel on, who was a former Miami prosecutor. So he's going to be popping in to give us his take on how this was a fraudulent trial. At the bottom of the next hour, then we've got a special guest joining us as well to break down who Obama really is, coming up in the third hour. But the reason I started the broadcast off today with the announcement of, the CIA and the Pentagon and every other federal agency is going to directly propagandize you. Because this isn't just news. If you read what they're saying, they're going to engage in psyops openly. Well, in a way, that's almost good that we're going to have open state-run media, because I'm trying to explain to you that in the old days, the FBI would come to somebody and say, if you don't report like we want, we're basically going to come after you. And again, most of the FBI wasn't involved in this. They had special divisions that did the political intimidation. So the compartmentalized good guy FBI had no idea what was going on. They had Defense Department people that did this. J. Edgar Hoover would get on a power trip and make directors give him edits of films early so he could approve it. This always happens in authoritarian regimes. If you watch The Lives of Others, that's based on a true story of the Stasi spy grid in East Germany, you see the party officials over arts and entertainment making all the most lovely TV and film stars and actresses have sex with them and approving what they liked. And if someone didn't kiss their butt, even if they were a communist, that's finally what made the Eastern Germany fall, was that they were even mean to other leftists and communists. It was just authoritarian nightmare. Of course, anything centralized will become authoritarian. It's like creating 100-degree swamp water. You're going to get amoebas in it. You understand that? That's kind of an analogy. Liberty is like sub-zero water. There's not going to be any tyranny living in that. But tyranny is that it heats up to 103 degrees. It is a living soup of parasitic crud. And you let big government come in, you have just brought in the ether in which this is allowed to grow. Conversely, history has shown, and I'm a hardcore libertarian, no government creates an ether of just gangs and bedlam and then warlords that then form governments. And generally people get sick of the warlords and no productivity, then they get overthrown by more and more stable systems. That's the problem with people like Adam Kokesh's plans. Is he's like, we'll just see what happens. We'll just get rid of the government and then we'll figure it out. And I'm like, really? With the big mega corporations having all the power in their own paramilitary forces, they will instantly come into that vacuum. The globalists actually overthrow countries' governments to create a vacuum to come in and do that. I mean, we're talking real world here, ladies and gentlemen, not pipe dreams. You have anarchy, you get hell on earth. You get a big government, you have hell on earth. This is a fact. This has happened over and over again. And the biggest piece of evidence you've got of tyranny is not just the books written by the globalists and the Council on Foreign Relations and the Club of Rome that we bibliograph in films and shows and show you where they're at. And please go look it up. Please go read the British Ministry of Defense 2007 global collapse model. Please go find out why they're getting ready, why they want our guns. Please. When you turn on the news or you turn on dramas and sitcoms and movies, every show is anti-male, anti-gun, anti-liberty, pro-abortion, pro-forced vaccines, pro-checkpoints, pro-martial law. I saw 2 movies a few weeks ago, action drama movies is what we happen to watch in bed late at night with my wife. And both of them, the CIA was killing people's kids in front of them. And at the end of the movie, they're good guys for killing people's kids. In fact, I'm going to look up the name of that during the break. It's like Numbers something. One of the movies where the numbers, and they broadcast out the numbers, and then the hit teams go out, but bad guys take over, and then broadcast kill the CIA guys and the hit teams, and on and on and on. And in the movie, he kills the guy's 11-year-old daughter, and he kind of feels bad about it, but it's okay because he's a good guy. Cold-blooded, kills the girl because he knows it's... I mean, it's just sick. And that's what they do in real life. It's collateral damage, folks. In this country, at least since the 60s, they will send in paramilitary teams, whether it's in Guatemala or South Vietnam or right here in the U.S., and if they're at somebody's house, say, killing Gary Webb, if his kids would have been accidentally there, they'd have killed them, folks. That's called collateral damage, you know, where they blow up a wedding party and kill 100+ innocent people to get one bad guy that they call a terrorist. I saw Time magazine had an article on drones, and it said, it's killed so many thousands terrorists. No judge, no jury. You're just a terrorist, and if we kill you, you're a terrorist. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back live here on this Monday worldwide edition of The Transmission. Mike Zullo will be joining us, head of the cold case posse. He says 100% proof that the birth certificate is completely fake. And again, they put out a fake one on purpose, I believe, to then create a debate about that instead of all of Obama's policies. It shows how sophisticated these guys are. The whole Kenya thing, this is conclusive now, was a diversion from who his dad really was. The White House admits, he writes in his own book, Dreams of My Father, about how he would go and spend summers with the famous communist pornographer, black pornographer, his dad. Unbelievable. But they don't call it his dad. He would go to be mentored, and his grandfather was good friends with him and would bring him over there. And you look, it's his dad. It's amazing. No wonder his wife, the first lady, said over and over again until 6 years ago that Obama was born in Kenya. No wonder his Harvard documents said that he was born in Kenya when he was the head of the Harvard Law Review. I mean, that's their write-up in the magazine that came out quarterly. Imagine you're the head of the Harvard Review and there's the write-up about you, and they had a write-up that went out to publishers for over 15 years. Hey, do a book about Obama, this great guy, and they did books. The Kenyan-born guy that came to America and became the head of the Harvard Review. And then Chris Matthews goes, it's insane to say that we haven't given the birth certificate for 4 years, remember? They go, this is the birth certificate, a receipt of it, a modern printout. Everybody's like, that's the printout. And then finally they go, oh, you're right, here it is. And you look at it, and it's in layers on purpose with the different layers of fake stuff, and they used a font that's the typewriter font to make it look like a typewriter, but it's not a typewriter because the letters are identical. They have fake splats on them, microscopic splats, but they're all unified. It's open and shut, completely fake. It'd be like if every snowflake falling out of the sky was the same snowflake. Those aren't natural snowflakes. It'd be like if you went in a house that had thousands of fingerprints, but they were all the same fingerprint. You'd say, this is not more people's fingerprints. This is one set. This is the type of stuff, but he's got dozens and dozens and dozens. In fact, I told Zullo last week, or through the producer, to bring his exhibits if he wanted to email those to you guys. Did he indeed send the exhibits? Because I'd like to go over the exhibits on air. The affidavit, good. Well, we'll go over any exhibits that they also have online for TV viewers. For radio listeners, we'll direct you where the affidavit is, because they're going ahead with a lawsuit over this. So he's going to be in studio with us on that subject. Now, I haven't gotten into Trayvon Martin yet. I started the broadcast out going, oh, look, here is mainstream news admitting that our media is going to be directly targeted, and the public's going to be targeted with propaganda and with psychological operations. Now, this has already been going on. It's kind of like the NSA's been spying on us forever, but now it's going to spy and record everything you ever do forever and pre-crime track you without warrants, totally illegal. And they're just going, what are you going to do to us? And now they come out and go, oh, yeah, we're going to have Voice of America, and it's hundreds of sitcoms and dramas and soap operas. And by the way, you know what these soap operas are? Take your shots. All the, the classic brainwashing, all the conditioning, and now it allows those funds to flow, and even covert propaganda planted in newspapers. They're just saying, oh, we're saying it's legal now. We're saying we can torture you and disappear you if you want. The president signed the NDAA. He can do whatever he wants. He can decide to kill whoever he wants, including U.S. citizens. Who needs judges? Who needs juries? Who needs indictments? Why do you think they're bringing in this culture of total tyranny? Because they're going to hammer the economy, take the bank accounts, and irrevocably turn America scientifically into a tyranny. And that's why there's bipartisan support for this, because the word's gone out, hey, you get with the program or you get dead, or you get put in prison, or you get shut out of the power structure and all the moolah. But the problem is when everybody sells out, everything collapses. I use the analogy of pornography. I saw a Wall Street Journal article a few months ago. Women, supermodel type women, that were being paid $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 per pornographic shoot are being paid maybe $1,000 now. Many women end up doing it for free now, just so they can promote their website and try to get a fan base, try to make money off that. Because everybody went in the economy the last 20 years, and it went from thousands of women doing porn to tens of thousands of women doing porn to hundreds of thousands of American women now engaged in hardcore pornography. And then women started doing more and more bad things for their body, more and more disgusting things, more and more degrading things. And now they can't even get paid extra money to do unspeakably disgusting, unhealthy, horrible things. And if you criticize it, you're a square, and you're anti-woman, and you're anti-their freedom. Yeah, to have some Russian gangster break their jaw and put cigarettes out on them, and yeah, you're right, I'm trying to steal the women's wonderful rights. Gay men have the lowest life expectancy in this country on average, and have on average over 200 partners a year. And die alone without children and without family. I don't hate them for what they do sexually. I don't even judge them. I'm just simply saying, why is this being force-fed? Why is this being promoted? I mean, I've covered a Rolling Stone article, but I'd already read this in other medical journals, a Rolling Stone article about 10 years ago called Bug Chasers, where from San Francisco to New York, the trendy thing is to get HIV, and so men try to go out and get it, to then show their family they're truly gay, and really show their parents, that they've committed to it. I mean, it's human sacrifice that's going on. And what do they push now to 5-year-olds in programming on Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon, on record, to 5-year-olds, teaching them not just how to have sex, which would be bad enough, but what are you doing sexualizing children, but confusing their gender and trying to teach them about not just homosexual sex, but other forms as well. I mean, this is a pervert, crazy government. That's so decadent, all they've got is targeting children. And that's what happens in every culture in history when it becomes decadent and goes into these cycles. We're sitting here watching this, so when you see all this, ladies and gentlemen, you wonder why every show is anti-regular father, every show is anti-family, and is pro-break up the family or have foster parent families run by 2 lesbian cops, or the bad guys on every show are the biological parents trying to get their kids back. I mean, I turn on, my wife goes, I can't watch any television. She said whether it's British sitcoms or dramas, or whether it's French sitcoms and dramas, or Italian, because she grew up in Europe and speaks all those languages, or whether it's American, or whether it's all anti-family, anti-liberty, anti-gun, anti-America, 24/7, because that's who runs our country. That, and that isn't just liberals running around who want to condition us to, all be tolerant. They want to teach everybody to not be tolerant and attack people that just want to live like normal mammals. One male fox, one female fox in a den having babies. A daddy whale, a mommy whale, having 2 baby whales that nurse mommy in the Atlantic Ocean. That's not racist. That's not extreme. That's not bad. They say mother and father. Those words are now intolerant in France and the U.S. and Canada, and the federal government's removed the name mother and father, man and woman. Just saying you're a man is bigoted. Just saying you're a woman that likes men is bigoted. Look at it. This is who they are. They're attacking humanity. It's a eugenics operation. They hate gay people. They used gay people as the vector in New York to spread HIV. That's been declassified with HIV in, look it up, with HIV in the hepatitis shots in the 1970s. The Bayer Pharmaceutical putting HIV in the factor 8. Putting hepatitis, folks, they don't care about you, but it becomes your identity until they caught a bunch of people trying to get in the Texas Capitol with bags of feces, urine, blood, bloody tampons. I'm sorry to talk like this. This is Associated Press. To throw it on the pro-lifers and the people in the legislature. And they run around spitting on people, screaming and yelling demonically, saying, I love you, Satan. Hail, Satan. We've played it. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm right down the street from it. We sent Jakari down there, and he got people just freaking out, flailing around, like it was some type of demonic voodoo ritual or something. These women covered head to toe in satanic tattoos, screaming, Hail Satan, with bags of poop. Because that's all they've got. Is, look, I'm going to be bad. I'm going to show you. That's their possession now. Not a good job, not having kids, not having a good husband, not having some goats and chickens in the backyard and growing things and being loving. No, being demonic hobgoblins running around foaming at the mouth. That's what happens in every culture that gets decadent. It always, Rome, Babylon, the Aztecs, you know history. People end up cutting themselves, tattooing themselves, running around, human sacrificing, wallowing in poop. Japan, the most popular shop in Japan, look this up, are poop shops. And I got families listening. I'm not going to go any further into this. The whole point is that there are vending machines everywhere. I'm not even going to get into what's going on. Things you can't even imagine. Bloomberg reported the #1 seller in Japan now is diapers for men and women, not Depends, because you have incontinence. It is the relished pleasure of large sections of the Japanese to wear diapers and to defecate on themselves and to sit around watching TV and doing it right out of idiocracy. And ladies and gentlemen, if you think I'm joking, there it is, adult diapers surpass new trend among Japanese women. And of course, with the Japanese, cleanliness was their culture. Being clean, taking 2 big hot baths a day, scrubbing their skin, being the cleanest culture on earth. But see, how do you become decadent? How do you show people, I'm desperate, I'm scared, I'm freaking out, I don't know what to do with all this electromagnetic radiation and this TV culture and the breakdown of the family? What do? We commit suicide culturally. And I'm not knocking you if you got tattoos as a rite of passage, you were in the military. I see some neat tattoos. It's an art form. I get it. Got friends with tattoos. I get it. My wife's got a pretty rose tattoo on her back she's had since college. Whatever. The point is that in cultures, when the people start getting tattoos and cutting themselves and changing their body, look at the Old Testament. Every culture that did that, oh my gosh, get ready. It's a sign. Millions of diapers in Japan are sold a day for adults. And everybody sits there in their office or at the factories pooping on themselves and celebrating it. That's their right. It's their right to put a diaper on and to do this all day and to stink. And you are a square. I mean, what do you call it? If you're bigoted, if you say, hey, the family's okay, I guess it's bigoted. I'm a bigot. Maybe I'll be hauled up by the UN International Tribunal for being a bigot because I'm saying it's wrong to do things like that. And so that's all we've got now. And the black community's been programmed more than anybody that what their possession is that they've been abused, they've been treated bad, everybody's out to get them. All the whiteys are racist, and that they can be racist and say, kill whitey, that's okay. And then don't expect whitey to then become, and I told you I would expect, I said last Friday, I said, I believe, I've been saying this for months, that Zimmerman would be acquitted because the charges were too strong, and there's reasonable doubt. And I said I thought there would be moderate riots in California, Florida, Detroit, and New York. And there have been unrest and windows being broken and things being set on fire and highways being blocked and people being assaulted, but they call it a protest. Oh, TV reporters got their cameras taken and surrounded and beat up. A protest? Really, can I just walk up to a camera guy and break their jaw and go, protest? Just kind of like these protesters when the government uses Al-Qaeda to attack Libya and Syria and all these places. So it's a protest. But America gripped by second night of fury over not guilty verdict for neighborhood watchman who shot black teenager armed only with a bag of Skittles. Well, he was armed with his fist and was reportedly on top of him beating him. But I don't know. That's what witnesses said. Reasonable doubt. I don't know that O.J. for sure killed his wife, even though he's found guilty in a civil trial. So if there's reasonable doubt, he walks. Did you see white people going out and rioting and burning things down, burning down the house when that happened, even though it was sold as racial? And some black folks went out and celebrated because, again, their identity is in being victims. Not all black folks, but a large minority of black folks joined by white anarchists and Hispanic anarchists, that's who's doing it, who just want to go out and have an excuse. I saw some of the videos of people blocking the highway. It'd be one thing if a protest blocked the highway. I'd say, it's a demonstration. I get it. But people bowing up, walking up with their fist clenched by vehicles, I don't care what color you are. You come up to me with your fist bowed. I've grown up and learned not to get so angry, but there might be a problem. I was hiking up a big 10-foot wide trail yesterday, and I had earphones in, listening to a book on tape. And this mountain biker had decided, I mean, you're talking about going up a big hill. He could see me for 100 yards. He got in the rut I was in and came up behind me. And at the last second, I see him and began to step aside, and he hit me with the handlebar. And I went, hey, man, what's the etiquette here? And the guy looks back and ignores me with earbuds and keeps going. And I went, hey, that is really aggressive. And the guy kept going, and I kind of jogged up to the top, not to have a fight. But the guy got in his car looking at me and drove off. It was like that was his sacrament, was to, it's like gang activity, was to bump me. And I saw these people blocking the highway and bugging their eyes out, black guys at white drivers. And I mean, I would probably flip out, folks. If somebody's like bowing up, blocking my car, I mean, I don't care if you're black, white, whoever you are, I'm praying to God that I wouldn't get angry. But I mean, this is really aggressive stuff, and I'm telling you, if the media keeps hyping it, you're going to see Reginald Denny. You're going to see white people's faces beat in on the highway, and MSNBC will say, that's good. Now it's evened things out. So I say we randomly pull white people out, sacrifice them to prove we're bad. All right, folks, I'm going to open the phones up when we start the next hour. I want your take on all of what's happening, but this is globalist corporate propaganda through the government-controlled media to create racial division in this country. And, of course, I'm being sarcastic about You know, let's sacrifice white people publicly to prove that, you know, we're sorry and atone for our evil. It is so frustrating to see this cosmology. I mean, do black folks or anybody else in this country know that until the 1880s, German white slaves called serfs were being whipped and imprisoned for not doing their work or running away? The last German province in the 1880s outlawed slavery, serfdom. There were areas, you know, in Cuba and places that didn't outlaw it till then. Do people know that white people by the hundreds of thousands conservatively every few decades would be impressed by European navies, conked on the head by a press gang, and children, men, you name it, and drugged to be slaves on ships? You were slaves. I mean, they would kill you. If you didn't follow orders, they would whip you with a cat o' nine tails, and a lot of times you died from that, or drag you from stem to stern under the boat with all the barnacles. It's called keel hauling. Oh, they didn't make a roots about that. When you see Amatas or all these Amistad or whatever it is movie, I saw it, and it's just black people being beaten the whole time on ships. Do they ever show you what went on to the people that were slaves in the Navy? What do you think the draft comes from? It's just a modern version. But this was where they would hang you the third time you talked back to an officer. Hang you. Oh, but no one knows about that, even though it's mainline history, because it doesn't fit into the cosmology. So it's wide open phones, anything you want to talk about, but I'd like to get your take on, I told you that he would get off, and I told you that he would walk, and I told you that I would imagine some sporadic rioting and light violence, and that if the media then encourages it and says it's a good thing, you're going to start seeing people get drug out of their car. And it's only a matter of time, folks, till people get drug out of their cars. There's already cameramen getting roughed up and people getting their cars shooken and robbed and stuff, and the media is kind of burying that in the back of the paper instead of saying that's bad behavior. Because a demonstration is not going out and beating up a cameraman from a news station as if they did something to you. I guess they're white, that's enough. This is unbelievable, and it's just an excuse to act out and be tribal, and it's this Democratic Party idea that you get ahead by being tribal. Now, we're going to start the next hour, but the toll-free number to join us is 800-259-9231, 800-259-9231. Don't forget, Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 and a whole bunch of new amazing products are available at InfoWarsHealth.com. That's InfoWarsHealth.com. You can also call the toll-free number, 888-789-9277, to ask any questions or get help signing up for auto ship to get free shipping, or pay $10 and to become a distributor. Again, you can call that toll-free number that is at InfoWarsHealth.com to be able to do that, or you can also just go to InfoWarsHealth.com and order right there via the online shopping cart. And your purchases fund this hardcore operation of just telling it like it is. Please go to InfoWarsStore.com, and you can find the Pro Pure water filters to cut out so much of the garbage that's in the water table and the tap water for you and your family. The lowest prices on the best gravity-fed filter out there. Promo code WATER to get 10% off at InfoWarsStore.com. Or call this number, this is our offices, for any questions about Pro Pure, the films, the books, any of it, 888-253-3139, 888-253-3139. Second hour coming up. All right, we're into the second hour. We have seen riots and assaults carried out mainly in Los Angeles and Oakland, California, exactly where we would expect it to go on. Where the only thing they've got out there, black, white, doesn't matter, is a culture of political correctness and obsessions with it. And we're going to go over some of those photos for TV viewers coming up in the next segment as we take calls. DrudgeReport.com has the most extensive coverage on it. America gripped by second night of fury over not guilty verdict for neighborhood watchman who shot black teenager armed only with a bag of Skittles. That's the British press playing along with it, but the Daily Mail's got a huge article with photos and videos. There's also one on Infowars.com It's got some of the same stuff, but also some other things. Oakland police stood down as protesters terrorized drivers. That's really important news by Paul Joseph Watson. It's the same thing that went on in the LA riots and led to Reginald Denny absolutely getting his face stomped in. And I've seen people still defending that. Yeah, we ought to Reginald Denny, Alex Jones. Go to my YouTube channel. Read the comments in my videos about this. These are real people with real sites. It's disgusting. I don't hate you, though. I realize you've been brainwashed, and I don't hate even the Klan. They're just dumb idiots, man. That's all these are, black Klan people. It's really disgusting. Also, Trayvon Martin, he's a martyr to get our guns, Freudian slip. Supporters staged second night of fury. That's Paul Watson's article as well. And there's a Ron Paul article. We're going to get to all of it here, but I want to go to your phone calls. Let's go to one right now. Let's talk to Sean in Canada. What's your perspective as a Canadian on this three-ring circus?
I think it's clear that the media is acting as in a provocateur fashion, and they're just trying to stir the pot and create chaos. It's unbelievably irresponsible, and it's going to have deadly consequences. And I'm always shocked at how far these people go, and that they're lacking morals and scruples. It's incredible.
Well, I mean, I just don't get how the media defends people randomly roughing up cameramen just because they're white from a news station. I mean, being white, you're not inherently evil. I mean, this is the opposite of what Martin Luther King talked about, judging people off the character of what they do. I mean, it was a white guy yesterday that bumped me with his bike for literally on purpose. It's like a 10-foot wide path. I'm on the side I'm supposed to be. He's coming up. I hear, get out of the way right when he hits me. And, I mean, I disliked him because of what he did, not because he was white. I mean, if he'd have been a black guy, I'd have been mad at him. It was because he was a jerk. And some of these bike riders, I'm telling you, if I open the phones up, people would call in about it. They're just running into people. They believe they're God, not just with cars. They believe they're God with pedestrians. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. It's that snobby, smug green thing where you're better than everybody else because you're reducing your carbon footprint and the whole global warming hysteria. You get to feel good because you're part of that trendy new movement that's supposedly saving Gaia, Mother Earth, but it's just ridiculous.
Well, if they did that later, I would buy into it because I don't think fossil fuels are good overall, obviously, but it's what we got right now. If they were worried about GMOs and the real big threats and chemtrailing, then I'd listen. But it's all about paying taxes to the Davos group, basically.
Yeah. Well, I hope the violence is quelled and this doesn't go any further. Obviously, this is just more anti-gun agenda stuff and racial divide and conquer, and it's just disgusting and deplorable. And
no, I agree with you. They have successfully now fused racially being anti-gun. That's why so many Hispanic immigrants, because they think the government's their friend because the government gives them free stuff, vote anti-gun. Well, why wouldn't you want a gun? You just left a country where you couldn't have guns that has the highest crime rate in the world. And it's the same thing for black voters. Most black voters, you can look it up, vote anti-gun. Why would you vote anti-gun? You're being killed because only the criminals have the guns in your cities. God bless you. I appreciate your call. See, I want to arm black people. I want to arm Mexicans in Mexico. I want you to be free. I want your mind on fire with liberty. Don't you get that? I love you. I want you to be rich and powerful and successful. Let me tell you what tyranny is. It's when corrupt influences get control of the economy, and the economy is no longer about what you actually produce and what you stand for and the quality. It's about whoever is in charge and how big their gang is. And then productivity implodes, the society then collapses. But the globalists have openly said they believe high technology is going to now change that. And that's why they call their takeover, Bertrand Russell and others, Julian Huxley, Aldous Huxley, the Club of Rome, call it the final revolution of the technocrat. And that's why you see the Davos group and Bilderberg and the EU and the Pentagon and all of them calling themselves technocrats. And that term, the final revolution. And it's scientific how they manipulate people, but once you're aware of the trick, then it's like, oh, that's so simple. It's like the trick of a rabbit. The rabbit's in the box, and then suddenly you spin the box around. Now the rabbit isn't, but you've slid down a mirror that looks like the inside of the box to create the illusion. the rabbit didn't really disappear. Just like it's not in the hat, then it's in the hat. It's got a compartment in it, the hat. But you tell a 3-year-old that sees a rabbit trick, no, honey, the rabbit was already in there. Or the hat's sitting on a table that has a trap door in it, and he pulls the rabbit up into the hat and then out. And the 3-year-old will say, no, it's magic, he pulled the rabbit out. And that's what's so frustrating. I don't want to sit here and talk about Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman. I don't want to sit here and weigh in on all this race garbage. People love it. People are primitive on all sides. It's fun for people to divert and to get into a group think, because we're not allowed to have any type of group culture or group identity unless it's authorized by the mainstream media, and then it's supposed to be anti-white. And that's only because whites are the supposed majority, not anymore, and so they've got to be guilted into politically doing whatever they're told. Oh, you're pro-gun? That's because you're racist. Let's turn our guns in for Trayvon. That's what we're hearing from the White House. And the White House is so concerned about one dead black man, but they're not concerned about 40,000 conservatively, last time I checked, dead Libyans, most of them black, hacked up by Saudi Arabians and Qataris, brought in videos. Just type in Libyan forces, Western forces, Libyan rebels kill blacks, and you'll just see just hundreds of videos of them chopping men, women, and children up with machetes because they don't want black Libyans in North Africa. I mean, if blacks can't be in Africa, where can they be? But no one cares about that except for Cynthia McKinney and people that actually have a brain on their shoulders. No, it's all about hating whitey as a political diversion. And if you go to Infowars.com, Oakland police stood down as protesters terrorized drivers, assaulted camera people, attacked news trucks, attacked police cars. Cops were in cars that got the windows knocked out. What did the cops do? They ran, and cops didn't respond. I mean, if you talk back to a cop, I don't care if you're black or white, you're going to get your head beat in most areas. You're going to get a proctology exam, just to show you, oh, you talk back, I'm going to catheterize you now as a form of torture. Oh, but my goodness, they've been told you stand down. Why is that? Because they're wanting riots, ladies and gentlemen, just like when Daryl Gates stood down in the LA riots. That's what's being pushed here, because the higher-ups want a diversion from the NSA gate, the IRS gate, the corruption going on with all these appointments of people to ambassadorships for money. Transparency suffers. The State Department fails to report where they're spending money, what they're doing. That's not transparency. That's open crime going on. Government on purpose is refusing to answer FOIA requests now on anything. They've got water district officials all over from Texas to Tennessee to New York saying it's terrorism to demand your water be tested. I'm not joking. Look that up. Government is going wild. Government is rioting. Bureaucrats are rioting. And let me tell you, they want some good old-fashioned rioting so they can call out Homeland Security just like they did with the Boston bombing. 3 people killed, a few dozen injured. And they trained us for martial law nationwide, now announcing it on C-SPAN to start doing this anytime anything happens. Oh, fireworks went off. We're going to lock your whole neighborhood down and search all your houses without warrants. Totally illegal. We're going to do it. Oh, fires in L.A.? We're going to let it get out of hand and then call in troops and lock everything down. Just like New Orleans, where FEMA jammed the police communications so there'd be a stand down, so looting would start, so they could go in and do a gun confiscation drill. I'm telling you, it's order out of chaos. Order out of chaos. This is what the government does. Just like big banks come in and bankrupt the country to then have it implode so they can buy everything up 5 years later for pennies on the dollar. This is what they do. This is just like big corporations come in and buy up another corporation for pennies on the dollar or get control of the board and then run up giant debts, steal everybody's pensions, and then break up the company and sell it, and nobody gets in trouble. Just like in Goodfellas, based on a true story. The movie Goodfellas with Robert De Niro, great movie, is based on a true story. That's a true story. And they would go into a restaurant and say, we're going to take your restaurant over, or we're going to give you problems. And then they would run up the bills for a couple of years, pay none of the bills, hand it all to the owner, have them declare bankruptcy, and then burn the place down for the insurance. And America and the rest of the world is being burned down for the insurance. I mean, do you understand that, ladies and gentlemen? And the globalists absolutely have beta tested the minority communities for the police state. And do you think after they have speeches that are up on Infowars.com saying kill the police, attack the police, do you think the police are going to act better or worse after this? Do you think after all this happens, you're going to have more businesses in your community or less? So then they say, well, let's go to the white areas. So they go to the highways and start doing that. And again, it's going to create nothing but division. Let's go to your phone calls. Dean in Virginia, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Thanks for taking my call, Alex. And I got to tell you, I'm addicted. I'm addicted to truth.
Me too.
I've been listening to you for over 15 years, and you are my drug of the day. However, common sense is my drug. I want to thank you finally for getting those InfoWar business cards where I can hand out 20 to 30 of them a day as I wear your T-shirts to solicit conversations with people, to get people pro and con, either thumbs up or thumbs down. Then I give them a business card. I go, if you want to learn about what is real, go to this card. Then, my purpose also in calling is letting people know how they've been psyoped since day one of the Trayvon Martin. How do I mean that? Since day one, Zimmerman has never, ever been the alleged killer. He has always been the killer. I've been following other murders, whether it be a guy in the northwest of Washington, an Oriental, he was always alleged killer. The cop, the sheriff, alleged killer. Zimmerman was never, and I listened to this.
That's right, because people say, well, he did shoot him. You know, again, that's different from self-defense to being the murderer on purpose. He was always the murderer, meaning he did it on purpose. And again, there was reasonable doubt. He may have been a racist and gone out to kill him on purpose. I don't think so, but that could be the case. Doesn't matter. There's reasonable doubt, just like O.J.
The alleged, never the alleged. The administration, what president in history has ever taken sides in an ongoing court case? I can't remember one.
No, that's what the lawyer said, absolutely. And Drudge has the article where it links through all the examples of how the media convicted Zimmerman up front. The media...
Let's go to Fox News. Let's go to Fox News, who I watch now and then because they're the other side. Not anymore. Because they've been showing ad nauseum the scowling picture of Zimmerman and the skittle-eating 13-year-old Trayvon, and then they showed the smiling black picture of the sheriff and scowling picture of the white Hispanic. The black murderers are always shown smiling. The white Hispanics, whatever. To me, there's only one race. There's a human race.
No, I know, but I mean now you could be Korean and they would say it was a white shooter. I mean, it's all about demonizing. And I appreciate your call. Great points. Yeah, I mean, they're calling people protesters, and a lot of them are protesters. There's a lot of trendies, a lot of whites out there as well. And it's just a way to run around and all feel like victims. And meanwhile, we're all being victimized by the globalists with GMO, the food, all of it. Julio, you're on the air. Go ahead. From Illinois.
Speaking of GMOs, before I get to this media hysteria, I spoke to Juan Enriquez, big biotechnician on C-SPAN 2 weeks ago, and he was telling me how wonderful it's going to be in a few years' time. We're going to have genetically modified corn that helps fight cancer. I'm going to upload that video onto YouTube in a couple of hours, but GMO corn that helps you fight cancer.
Oh, yeah, no, it's called pharmacological corn. Everything is now to program us, and then we get sicker and sicker, and they just do it to us. And then we want the right to have it labeled, and the federal government and Obama blocks it to feed us stuff that kills rats. Well, the answer is say that Monsanto is a cracker. Actually, if that defeats them, I'll do it. Let's just say, actually, that's a plan. We could use their propaganda against them. Well, it really is racist against humanity. It's anti-human by the elitists, so let's just say Monsanto is racist. Actually, they were. They dumped the dioxin in black neighborhoods. You know, that's on record in Tennessee.
And in
so I'm being sarcastic. It's actually true. So there you go. I mean, I'm going to say it right now. It's politically correct. I'm allowed to say it. Monsanto is a cracker ass. How's that sound?
it's loving, Alex. They're doing it in St. Louis, Monsanto's hometown base, in the urban neighborhoods of St. Louis, spraying chemicals in. But it's for their own safety. It's for their freedom, Alex. In the urban neighborhoods where PepsiCo and all the link cards provide you GMO food, it's for your
Well, I'll tell you what,
Alex.
stay there, Julio. I know Julio. He's a great guy. We'll be right back. So, foreign banks run the country. They're stealing $85 million a month. They publicly tell us that it's their right to spy on us without warrants. They publicly tell us that the government can secretly arrest any citizen they want, disappear us, torture us, or even kill us. They clearly murdered Pat Tillman and many other whistleblowers. We've got persecution of the press going on at a level never before seen. But all of that is supposedly A-OK. Because the real issue here is white people are racist and out to get you. And I was being sarcastic about Monsanto, saying, well, let's just call them, say they're racist. And then I was like, wait a minute. They have a long history of dumping dioxin in minority areas, spraying poor troops with Agent Orange, with feeding us the worst stuff in the world. Bill Gates on their board, they're eugenicists. And I already know they're at the head of the eugenics operation. So it's really true. I mean, I'm making my own point. So many times I make an absurdist statement as a joke. And then I go, wait a minute, that's actually what's going on. Let's go back to Julio. By the way, I've met Julio. He's a reporter. He's done some work for us before. He's a black guy, but he doesn't identify himself as that. He identifies himself as a human being. Getting away from the GMO stuff that I know you're focused on, you're also a filmmaker. What is your take, Julio, on this whole PSYOP, or do you disagree with anything I've said?
Well, the truth is stranger than fiction, Alex, and I interned at the #1 station in Chicago back in 2009, owned and operated by ABC, and I witnessed firsthand media manipulation, how you can edit things to let the public perceive a certain narrative that you are looking to push, and it's done by the editors, it's done by the news directors, and I've witnessed it firsthand. I produced news from college, and just seeing this media hysteria going on, if you're a foreigner coming into the country and you're just watching corporate media for the last couple of weeks, you would think that the biggest story in the entire United States of America is in Sanford, Florida, with one case of a death of a 17-year-old.
And meanwhile, U.S. troops, the headline today was, the U.S. is not invading Egypt, but U.S. troops are massing in North Israel, South Israel, by the Gaza. They are massing. They won't leave. They got there a month ago, or over a month ago, and now won't leave. They got there in early June, won't leave Jordan, and Jordan's an ally, saying, what's going on? You've got Israel with cruise missiles attacking Syria, and it's not even news. It's a racist cracker, to use the term the media is using, wants to, is jihading the black people.
There's so many different PSYOPs going on just in this entire case alone. You have the PSYOP now of, the justice system didn't work. The legal system in the U.S. is flawed because George Zimmerman was acquitted. When in reality, the state of Florida, the prosecution did an abysmal job presenting to the jurors that George Zimmerman actually committed this crime.
Even the Miami Herald, one of the best papers in the country from a real liberal perspective, owned by McClatchy, had a big article with all these liberals going, no, they lost the case. I mean, anybody that knows law or has watched court TV a lot knows they didn't prove their case, just like O.J. Simpson. I mean, it is a no-brainer. Even though we think O.J. did it, they did not prove it without a shadow of a doubt.
Alex, I'm half Puerto Rican, half Venezuelan, and to see the media use white Hispanic, a made-up term that doesn't even really exist in the culture of Latinos themselves, it's just another PSYOP in and of itself. And again, they're trying to peg immigration and the black.
I mean, you look like Michael Jordan to me. So I mean, you've obviously got some African somewhere there.
Oh, probably my ancestors in Venezuela for sure.
Yeah.
It's just so fascinating, Alex. This media psyop, so much is going on. I heard on MSNBC today. I flip through the media. I monitor what's going on in corporate media, and they have this guy Torre. He does the show The Cycle. He was talking about white supremacy and George Zimmerman's secretive white supremacy and going after Trayvon Martin.
Meanwhile, his cousin's a cop, and they called him Jorge, and most of his family was. I guess, what do you call it, mestizo?
It's just so fascinating, Alex, what's going on here.
Well, they're even trying to say this football player that reportedly shot the black guy over a fight with, a girl or something, that it's race now. No, it's not. It's a bunch of thug NFL people. I just can't believe it, man. It's just unbelievable. Look, I think Zimmerman was stupid, following him down the street. And I got to be honest, if somebody walked to me with a gun and I wouldn't do anything wrong, I'd be like, hey, man, what's your problem? But I don't think I'd climb on them and start beating them. The issue is there's reasonable doubt. Julio, good to hear from you. Do you agree there was reasonable doubt, Julio?
Oh, yeah, there was reasonable doubt. It's just the media's blowing things out of proportion as usual. You have gangs in Chicago killing young children, but that's not being talked about because then they'd have to expose the drug war. They'd have to. That's right.
262,000 plus blacks killed by blacks since 1976. 94% of black death by homicide is black on black. You're not going to hear that out of Al Sharpton's mouth. Popular TV host and, of course, a former prosecutor and lawyer, Lionel, is going to be joining us. And, of course, he's been syndicated by WOR out of New York, and he has a TV show on WPIX, Channel 11, one of the biggest stations in New York. He's got inside intel, former prosecutor in Tampa, Florida, but also knew a lot of people across the state. So he's going to be giving us his take. And actually, when I heard his take, and he wanted to come on the show, it was reminding me of how the police chief came out and said it was basically a setup, and they wanted a conviction day one for political purposes, and they had all the witnesses and were told to basically not talk about it, and now the prosecutors have been caught with the head IT guy going, hey, he's got guns, he's got loot in these photos off his phone. You don't want this to be given to the defense? I mean, mistrial right there. But we're going to talk to him in a moment. In fact, we're getting him on the line here in just a second. But while we're waiting to do that, let's go to a few more calls quickly. I said I'd take a lot of calls, and I haven't yet, so I want to try to get some calls in right now. Pete in New York, your real quick take on what's going on in the world.
Hey, what's going on, Alex? Thanks for taking my call, man.
You bet, buddy.
Love your show. Wouldn't you agree that this whole Zimmerman stuff is just like a divide and conquer distraction from really the important issues that's going on in the world right now? I mean, we have a rush on military preparedness. I mean, Iran's going crazy. I mean, Israel, Netanyahu saying stuff about Iran and their nuclear aspirations.
Well, here's the deal. We've heard a lot about Iran. There's been a covert war there by the U.S., NATO, and Israel blowing stuff up. But now they're moving troops in. The Russians are moving troops into the area. And there's headlines like, World War III in mainstream news. So you're absolutely right, sir, that while we're busy fighting with each other over melanin in our skin, but see, I have to cover this because I'm not doing the magic trick. I'm showing how the magic trick's done. I'm trying to defuse this by pointing out what's really happening. The average, libertarian, right-wing type talk show host, even though I agree with them on most issues, is busy talking about how racist a lot of black people are, which is true. And they're busy, playing that up, and it's actually causing a divide and playing, racist-sounding songs and things that, really create division. Just because there's a lot of racist minorities doesn't mean it's okay to then play into the whole deal. So that's why I'm forced to cover it. But I'm glad you mentioned it's a diversion, because I want to point out I'm not covering it as a diversion. I'm covering it to show how it is a diversion. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely, Alex. And I'm glad you are covering it. I mean, because there are issues that have to be addressed. But, I mean, for people to say that this is supposed to be the top news story and we should all just lose our heads over something that in my city, New York City, it happens every day. A Spanish person kills a black person every day, and you never hear it get reported. I mean, whether it's self-defense or not, I mean, there's bigger issues right now that we should all be focusing on.
Well, exactly. But, I mean, one reason black folks are so angry is there is such a thing as driving while black, walking while black. I appreciate your call. I mean, I grew up as a sports guy, playing baseball, playing football. Wasn't great at really any of it, but I had my moments, but it was hit and miss. Plus, I'm not that big of a guy. But the point is, so I was in sports, so half my friends were probably black, and I'd go hang out at their house. And, you know, some of them lived in the country, some in the nice neighborhoods, some in the slums. And so I saw a lot of stuff. But you'd be driving, you know, with your black friend next to you. You get pulled over. You'd be walking to somebody's house with a black person. It only happened when I was with a black person. Or if I was walking home at night at midnight and I was 13 years old and it was white kids, the cops would then say, you know, well, where are you going? What are you doing? Because it is a little suspicious to be 13 walking around at midnight. But I'd be walking around at noon on a Saturday to, you know, go swimming or to go play baseball. And the cops would pull over and search us and stuff like that when I was a kid. So I mean, I get that's going on. And it's like Tony Brown has said so many times, Tony Brown's Journal, that what you see done in the black community, that's then going to be done in yours. So, I mean, blacks have been given the short end of the stick, but it's turned into this whole culture of freaking out and hyperventilating over this stuff. Now, I'm going to go to David in Missouri and John and Ernest and Ryan and Steve and others, but I wanted to get that call in there real quick before we go to our next guest. And just briefly, I also want to encourage listeners, the real revolution is about getting healthy. The real revolution is about filtering your water, trying to exercise, trying to not fight in your family, trying to build a culture, trying to grow a garden, trying to not watch as much television, trying to discover what real reality is, and really being a deep person and not just going off stereotypes. And a big place to start is supporting Liberty Media. Buy your war bonds. Go to InfoWarsStore.com, the best films, the best T-shirts, the best magazine, the best books, the best material. It starts shipping today. State of Mind, the film on mind control that I'm in, extremely powerful on Blu-ray and on DVD. InfoWarsStore.com. Every order gets a free Citizen Rulebook, bumper stickers, and more. Again, that's InfoWarsStore.com, and your purchase makes the broadcast possible. Get healthy, ladies and gentlemen. InfoWarsHealth.com has the new Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0, the ultimate multivitamin mineral complex, citrus peach fusion, certified non-GMO, pesticide-free whole foods, hundreds of great ingredients. They couldn't get the other one certified because there were just so many ingredients. Well, this one now has even more ingredients and is certified. Whole foods, trace minerals, antioxidants, probiotics, prebiotics, amino acids, essential cofactors, and more. InfoWarsHealth.com has it discounted, and you can go there and sign up for free shipping at InfoWarsHealth.com exclusively at InfoWarsHealth.com. Or you can call, and the toll-free number is 888-789-9277. They can help you sign up and be a distributor for $10, like getting a Costco card, and you get massive discounts at a distributor rate, or just buy straight off the shopping cart, InfoWarsHealth.com. And we are real, organic, true media funded by we the people. And I go out and I find the best water filter system in the major tests, side-by-side comparisons for my family. I use it for 2 years and then roll it out to my audience. ProPure, 10% off, promo code WATER, InfoWarsHealth.com. I find the best non-GMO, heirloom, open-pollinated seed lines. We have the Giant Seed Center, the biggest selection you'll find anywhere. Dozens of different varieties and companies, you name it, the best, InfoWarsStore.com. We find the best books, the best films, the best info. It's all about win-win-win. Fund the truth with the best products at the best prices. Shop with the good guys, InfoWarsHealth.com. And spread the word about our local AM and FM affiliates. Spread the word about if you're listening to us on XM. Spread the word if you're listening to us at Infowars.com. Spread the word about the free video feed at Infowars.com/show. That's how we're doing it, word of mouth here, folks. I'm risking my life doing this because I don't want to live as a slave. Now, Lionel goes by Lionel just like Sting goes by Sting. So you never say who his name is, but Michael LeBron, what a cool name, was his name as the main prosecutor there, one of the top prosecutors in Tampa, Florida. So he knows Florida state laws. He knows the Constitution. He's been a prosecutor, been a defense lawyer after that, but he's also been a syndicated radio host out of big stations like WOR, #1 in New York, and WPIX, Channel 11. And he is part of their morning top newscast and their nightly top newscast. In fact, he's going to tape one for tonight right after this show ends. LionelMedia.com is his website. and he joins us with his unique perspective, is what I'd call not a liberal, not a conservative. I would call him a constitutional populist, to give, as a prosecutor, his take. And by the way, when he gives you his take, which I know is highly educated, Miami Herald, okay, not known as some right-wing group, folks. They talk to all their lawyers, and they've got a bunch on their 800-plus staff at the Miami Herald, and they all concurred in an article yesterday that the prosecution blew the case. Lionel, I don't know your take on this yet fully, but what is your take as a prosecutor on what's happening with this case?
Very simple. Since April the 11th, 2012, when George Zimmerman was charged with second-degree murder, I said that he should never have been charged with that. They overcharged. The facts do not comport with this particular charge. When you want to look at this, I want you to think about it this way, Alex. I've never heard more people opine and weigh in regarding the law. They would never go on a sports show and say, you know, there's this game I'm supposed to be commenting on, and I didn't see it. I heard that the Yankees did okay, and I'm going to go on the radio and talk about it. They would never allow you to set foot in the studio. But when it comes to the law, and when it comes to a trial, I promise you that 99% of the people who have opined regarding this never listened to any of the facts of the case. Let me tell you what happened. The jury was absolutely correct. Here's why. The jury found either, and juries don't tell you why, but they said either the state failed to prove beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt the case of second-degree murder, the intentional killing of another with indifference, with a depraved mind, and ill will, or manslaughter, or, this is the other part, the state of Florida failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that there was no self-defense. One of two ways to happen. Now, there's a third way too, and nobody even addresses this at all because, at first, I must say this, give me 1 second. There is no winner here. There's no victor. Nobody won the lottery. Nobody won anything. A 17-year-old child, your son, my son's, could be anybody's. This is somebody's son.
There wasn't a spoil. There wasn't a motive.
Exactly, but this child will never see the age of 18. So nobody is gloating or nobody's high-fiving. Sometimes during the course of argument over who's right and who's wrong regarding the interpretation of a case, we forget that there's a human life involved. Okay, that being said, what happened was there was another aspect of this. It seems very credible evidence based upon what the defense put on and based upon what the prosecution put on, that Trayvon Martin was the aggressor. Now, nobody wants to talk about this. Nobody wants to address this because it's almost sacrilegious to talk about a victim as being the aggressor.
Yeah, but those witnesses are cracker asses.
Well, John Good saw this, saw what happened. He said this was Trayvon Martin on top, doing a ground and pound for a sustained period of time. If you look at the facts of this case, and Alex, you ever see these martial arts kind of graphics where they take just the shapes of blue or an orange and they just show people fighting? And I could show you what happened by computer graphics, and you didn't know if they were black or white or male or female or anything, but I just showed you this is what happened.
No, Joe Rogan calls it the rape choke.
Okay. Well,
you basically get on top of somebody, pound them, choke them. I mean, look, if somebody assaults me, that's what I do. I jump on top of them, bang their head in the ground. Trayvon Martin definitely knew what he was doing.
But if you look at the facts of the case as adduced at trial by the state of Florida, remember, not just the defense, but by their own witnesses, if you could see an animation of this, you would say that this person was the aggressor and this person defended himself, unfortunately, using deadly force. That's what happened. Let me also dispel a couple of things here. I'm a native Floridian, second generation, and Florida gets a lot of grief for everything from hanging chads to can't vote to these crazy gun laws and the like. Florida has had a very liberal carry permit for years. However, Florida has one of the most aggressive, Alex, the most aggressive minimum mandatory sentences, including 10-20 life. Look that baby up. Chapter 775, 10-20 life. Show a gun under an enumerated offense. Show a gun, 10 years. Fire a gun, 20 years. Kill somebody, life. That plus a host of minimum mandatories for using a gun against a police officer. Florida does it the right way. Florida says we will allow you, pursuant to the Second Amendment, to carry. However, woe unto you if you are in the wrong. Now, if this jury had utilized its option, Alex, to return a Category 1 lesser included of manslaughter, which they could have. They sometimes think, jurors think that, well, I'm being a compromise. It's a compromise verdict.
That would have been life in prison.
Exactly. So what happens was that didn't happen. This jury, and another aspect of this, talk about a misogynistic, sexist view of this. Well, those women, you know how those women get, Alex? You know how they are? They rule by their emotions. This jury, these women were most astute, most surgical, most precise in the analysis of this.
Well, from what I know, is what really killed it was the prosecution holding back evidence, and the jury learned that they had photos of loot, the gun, all this on Trayvon's phone, and held that back and a bunch of other stuff. So he would have defeated this on an appeal if he would have been wrongly convicted, don't you think?
Well, there's sanctioned hearings going on right now. We don't know what they did because, remember, all the jury does is it just says not guilty. We don't know why. Let me also tell you, one of the things that's amazing in terms of the ineptitude of the state of Florida, in this case, the prosecution. First, why would you put on the testimony of the walkthrough of George Zimmerman? This is his testimony in the light most favorable to him, followed by George Zimmerman on the Sean Hannity show, an edited pro, for lack of a better word, Zimmerman presentation. That's twice. What happened, Alex, was when the state rested, the defense did not have to put George Zimmerman on the stand because the state already had.
But that brings in the conspiracy theories of how the police chief says that they basically said, we're taking the case away, we're going to charge him, even though the police say they think it was in defense, and the cops knew they wouldn't get a conviction anyways, and then the police chief basically had to resign over it or left out of conscience. And then we discover that they then overcharge him and then do all these wrong things, almost like they wanted to get him acquitted to then create a diversion for Obama.
You know, it's funny you say that. It's funny you say that. Gore Vidal said he's not a conspiracy theorist, he's a conspiracy analyst. And I'm not suggesting any conspiratorial aspect of this. However, I was talking to a colleague of mine. I said, if you found out after the fact, let's just assume arguendo, hypothetically, for the sake of argument, but if you found out that this was thrown, then maybe I would understand why they put on the defense's testimony, why they would call such luminaries such as Dr. Shai-Ping Bao, who I still don't know what he testified to, who was the one who was recalcitrant when he said, you can't see my notes, putting on Rachel Jeantel to talk about I don't know what, Valerie Rao, all of these people, one after another. Another thing too, Alex, I'm sure you've been around the courtroom, but when you put your witness on, you give a very limited, microscopic, direct examination. Why? Because the cross-examination is based on the scope of your direct. So when you give these long narrative stories in your direct, you've just handed the keys over to the defense to have prosecution, cross-examination all day long. If I could, let me address something also. There is now the talk of people calling for civil rights prosecution, federal civil rights. Now, in the year 2012, last year, the FBI interviewed over 35 individuals, witnesses, and the FBI is not exactly gun-shy about bringing charges. They looked at this case every which way you can imagine, and they looked to see whether there was anything, any evidence that George Zimmerman was acting based upon an animus or a dislike or a discrimination against black or color or gender. Nothing. They already did this. So why are we looking at this again? It's already been done.
Absolutely. And again, even the Miami Herald talked to a bunch of liberal prosecutors and people, and they said, no way. I mean, Zimmerman had to get off because they did a terrible job. I think they dropped the ball on purpose for this giant political distraction we see right now. That's why the Justice Department took it over covertly. Ladies and gentlemen, State of Mind, the psychology of control, with all these psychiatrists and psychologists and Army psych warfare colonels like Colonel Schaefer, myself, G. Edward Griffin. This gets into mind control. This is the film to show your friends and family, to wake them up. I am the exclusive distributor of it, InfoWarsStore.com. It's now shipping today. We just showed video for TV viewers of about 2 hours ago. The first big load, I think 5,000 of them, the first 5,000 orders going out. There's another 5,000 orders or so that'll be going out this afternoon. And so get your order in today. State of Mind. We will premiere it on InfoWars Nightly News Wednesday. The entire film for PrisonPlanet.tv subscribers. And we're going to have the filmmakers and guests here in studio as well for like a 4-hour show special Wednesday night. All I can say, Lionel, reporting for WPIX, Channel 11 out of New York. I mean, I know a little bit about law. I'm not a former prosecutor like you. It's just that I've studied the law quite a bit, just having to deal with it in business and life and reading the news every day. And I mean, right there, the prosecution caught not giving vital evidence. He walks right there. I mean, if Charlie Manson was caught with, Sharon Tate's dead baby in his hands, it doesn't matter. If they tried to frame him, he walks. Explain that. I mean, 10 guilty go free, that one free man not go to jail. The media is saying the murder of black 17-year-olds has been legalized. That is not what's happened here.
No. In fact, that is more of a disservice. There's a case, Brady against Maryland, and prosecutors and defense lawyers call it Brady material. That means that I, as a prosecutor, if I come across something that's exculpatory, that gets you off the hook, you may not know about it, but I find a witness who casts doubt upon your being at the scene. I have to provide that to you. If I do not only is it prosecutorial misconduct, it's a mistrial. Let me also tell you something which is interesting, and I'm sure you come across this. There's the truth, and then there's the official story. And Daniel Patrick Moynihan said you're entitled to your own opinion, but not your own facts. What's interesting about this is there is a meme, and you use this Dawkins notion of memetics, this meme, this folklore, this myth, and somebody says it and it's repeated, and it goes as follows. Why did George Zimmerman refuse to follow the command of a 911 operator when they told him to go back in your car or stay in your car or not get in your car or something along those lines and not follow him? Why did he insist upon following? And you will hear this. And I think this is now my 10,000th time when I will tell you that Sean Nofke, who was not a 911 operator, he was a non-emergency dispatcher who testified, again, you got to watch the trial, who said, I never order anybody to do anything. He kept asking George Zimmerman, where is he walking? Is he walking here? Where is he going now?
Well, let me expand on that briefly. Okay. I also keep seeing in the last year and a half racist quotes attributed to Zimmerman, and I go look for them and can't find them. There's also just been made-up stuff put out there. It's bizarre. I mean, why not say he murdered Godzilla or something? I mean, it's just not true.
Remember this classic Witness 9 as to be confused for, or to be distinguished from Client 9. But let me go back to this one thing, though. They kept, if you listen to the actual testimony and listen to the tape, it's not 911. Nobody ordered him, but he was in essence being asked. Now, understand something also. This was a neighborhood watch volunteer. Why was he doing that? At the behest of the Sanford Police Department. And Officer Dorival said not only was he great, she tried to recruit him. And Alex, this is the best thing. They call him a cop wannabe. Going after him. And let's face it, when I first heard this, I fell victim to. I thought, here we go, another robot.
Hold on, do 5 more minutes with us, and we're going to get Lieutenant Mike Zullo in here with us, who heads up the cold case posse on where Obama really comes from. But stay there. I want you to come back and finish your point, and then talk about the riots. All right, Detective Mike Zullo is going to be in studio with us. He's here in Austin, Texas. He was here for Abbott's announcement. He's going to run against Perry, which is good. Abbott's a lot better than Perry. That's why Perry's been sounding so libertarian lately, is because he's up against some competition. Old pony boots, as they call him. But let's go back to Lionel, who is a former prosecutor out of Tampa, Florida, and a syndicated TV/radio host based out of New York. In closing, finish that point you were making, but what do you make of the fact that the police are letting people block roads and beat up cameramen and push on people's cars and knock out windows? I'm not looking for trouble, but I just can't help it. Somebody blocks my car, bows up to me. I pray to God every day that I learn how to back down. But I'm worried this is going to blow up like Reginald Denny if the media doesn't keep putting gasoline on it.
Well, Alex, I'm not familiar with some of those facts. I will tell you, though, that if we use some of the rather strict law enforcement techniques of the TSA, and used that rather sometimes draconian, no-nonsense approach, perhaps we wouldn't have problems like this because, you know, people have to be allowed to protest, and that's fine. There's also something very scary, Alex, when...
Yeah, wait a minute. I'm all for protesting. I don't want the highway blocked and then people roughing up cameramen.
No. Violence is never warranted. You know, when you put out the word, now we want you to be calm. What you're doing in a weird way, Alex, is you're tacitly providing the message that there is a logical connection to violence, perhaps, and dissatisfaction with the verdict. Because why would I suggest that you not do something, which I'm almost suggesting is a natural reaction? But let me just clear up one thing, which is the
No, that's like when a cop says, why are you getting upset when you're not, to make you get upset.
Or if I said, Alex, whatever you do, do not bang your head against the wall right now. Do not do that. Well, why would I do? Well, maybe that's warranted. But here is the thing. There are people who make up facts. I'm telling you. You know, Tolstoy said that history would be a wonderful thing if only it were true. And in the case of the official accounts, everything from the Vietnam War to you name it, people start to repeat memes. And there is this theme that is being repeated. I heard somebody that was a candidate for New York mayor who said that an unarmed man was shot dead. And I'm thinking, well, by its strictest definition, perhaps yes, but you're leaving out a lot of reasons behind that. The law of self-defense, Alex, is natural. It is not provided for by statute, and this was not stand your ground. It was not stand your ground. Let me repeat, it wasn't stand your ground. This was common law, natural law, the ability to protect yourself. Because remember, under the laws of Florida, he had a carry permit. It has to be concealed. It's a carrying a concealed firearm permit. You can't wear it exterior to you. During the fight, he testified that he saw Trayvon going for this gun. That's when it escalated. Had that not happened, again, we can play what if. Had that not happened, had George Zimmerman not had physical damage to his head, there could very well be a conviction for either second-degree murder.
Exactly, or if he'd have shot him more than once, because it would have shown the cravenness of it.
Or shot him from a distance, or had said something, or if it took one witness, just one witness, John Good, for example, to look outside and say, Trayvon was miles away when he started shooting feverishly. If one person saw O.J. kill his wife, if one person saw the decomposing body of Casey Anthony, great, what if?
Spoken like a true cracker ass.
Well, here is the bottom line also.
I'm just joking. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm from Florida, and interestingly enough, to be a cracker is a distinction of honor. It means you're a native, so I take part offense at that. But
hey, you're awesome. Listen, we're out of time. I want to get you back up later this week for a full hour on the Nightly News. We'd have you on tonight, but I know you got to go do your own TV show. LionelMedia.com. Folks can follow you there at Twitter as well. Thank you so much, Lionel.
Thank you, sir.
All right, great job. And of course, I'm joking, folks. I'm just having some fun because the mainstream media is promoting that. All right, I know we got your phone calls up there. We're going to get to you and get into the whole Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman fiasco that the media and the Justice Department are trying to stir up on record. But we'll do that in the second half of this hour. He's also going to be interviewed for Obama Deception 2 and hopefully for the Nightly News if he's got time to do all of that after the main radio show. Lieutenant Mike Zullo is a former law enforcement office criminal investigator for New Jersey, trained in fingerprint identification, narcotics investigations, homicide, domestic violence, etc. He joined Sheriff Joe Arpaio's Maricopa County Sheriff's Cold Case Posse in 2005 when he moved to Arizona. Lieutenant Zullo has been commander of the Cold Case Posse for the past 7 years and is Sheriff Arpaio's lead investigator to reveal any and all evidence to determine if President Obama's identification document is valid. It was their goal to clear the document as authentic and move the country forward. And I've talked to people that were there, like Sheriff Mack, who was being asked first to do this, and it was just so many constituents. He said, okay, I'll do it. Guys, I'm sure this isn't true, because I know people that were there at the meeting. And then they're like, no, it's fake. And it's like, oh, no. And that's why the Justice Department's come after him now. You've seen all this. And again, we don't even know, from my research, who Obama is. 3 aliases, proven, record sealed, hanging out with a communist pornographer that looks just like him, that his grandfather would bring him to in the summers. I mean, just his wife saying in all these speeches he's from Kenya, born there, in the Harvard Review as the head lawyer. As the head of the Harvard Review saying that he was from Kenya, his book deal proposal saying he was from Kenya, and then saying, you're crazy if you say that. I believe more and more now that it is Dreams of My Real Father, the film, that shows who his real dad was, that was another cover. So from my view, we don't know who he is. We know he's lying. We know there's a cover-up. And you're a detective with a distinguished background. You've been burrowed into this now for several years. You were already there on the cold case, dealing with serious crimes, Mike. So you didn't even ask for this. It was thrown in your lap by Sheriff Arpaio. So break down the saga, what it's been like, what's going on, the certified people that you've had, some of the top forensic experts in the country, the criminal case that's coming up, the Supreme Court of Alabama. From as best you know, what's going on here, and what should the viewers know out there, the listeners know, because you know what MSNBC's going to do. They'll probably play a clip of this and go, they're crazy, and they're saying our dear leader is a fraud, but that's all they say. They say we're crazy. What's really going on?
Well, Sheriff Arpaio did take this on, and we really went in there with the intention that this thing isn't going to be anything. Let's go in, let's clear the document, move the country forward. That was what the sheriff wanted. And it was like 24 hours later, I had to call the sheriff and say, we're going to have a problem here. We're 21 months into this now, and I can tell you this. We believe 100% that the document is a created, 100% fabricated birth certificate. It is not real. As a matter of fact, to use the word document is erroneous. It is a PDF file. It never started its life as a paper document. It was built inside a computer. Other documents were scanned in, and pieces of those documents were then utilized to create this fabrication. It's the only birth certificate I'm aware of that has 9 links and 9 layers. The only document that I'm aware of that the registrar's stamp that gives its official authenticity has been imported into that document. It comes in vertical, it's rotated 90 degrees horizontal and placed on the document. And you can move it all over the place. That document is a forgery. And if that document is a forgery, what was offered to the American people is absolutely nothing, Alex. What it really says is there is no proof on that birth narrative. There's no proof that Obama Sr. is the father, and there's no proof that Stanley Ann Dunham is the mother. There's no other information to back up those claims.
And it goes on and on. As you know, the State Department had the fake dad, who looks nothing like Obama, thrown out saying it's a sham marriage, he's not the dad. I mean, that's mainstream news. It just goes on. I remember 4 years ago, they're going, he wasn't named Barry Soetoro. That's a conspiracy. Now it's like, oh, yeah, my name was Barry Soetoro. Oh, yeah, I went to this mosque. Oh, my name was, he's got all these weird names. Bottom line, I know you're a detective, you deal with facts, but why is it so fake? What do you think's going on? Is it meant to be a diversion? What is it?
I don't really think it's meant to be a diversion, and I've heard that argument. What I think happened here, I think somebody either made a mistake or in haste, they put out the wrong file. And when it hit the internet through the White House servers, it was about 20 minutes. 130,000 some odd people had downloaded.
They didn't flatten it. They didn't flatten it.
They didn't flatten it. It was done in error. Now they have to live with this. And if you notice the way they've been handling this is they don't say anything about it. They let the little minions do it. I think there's something very nefarious going on here. And I think part of the reason why you see no action on it, which is, you've been saying for a long time, I think NSA is the reason why you see no action on this. I think they've got dirt on people that they shouldn't have any.
Well, that's now coming out, yeah.
Well, you can control a lot of people with that kind of stuff. This needs to go to Congress. That's what Sheriff Arpaio has been asking for, and I'm in the process of trying to get it there. And in your great state of Texas, we have Texas Congressman Steve Stockman, who's expressed a lot of interest in this. And I believe, Steve, once I sit down and really dissect this topic with you, I think he's going to take some action.
Man, he's a great guy.
I love Steve.
It's so weird that it's like Texas that's resisting everything. And then now the Democrats are in the news saying, we're going to take over Texas. Here's the headline where they say that, we're going to turn it into a blue state. And I'm not even a big Republican. I'm more of a libertarian, but it's really creepy to see how they're intimidating the press, they're intimidating the media, they're trying to intimidate Arpaio.
Yes.
And even liberals I know go, oh yeah, Obama kind of is a thug. And look at his attorney general and and now they're talking about arresting Rupert Murdoch. And I mean, if they start arresting the heads of even mildly conservative media, this is like turning into Nazi Germany or Soviet Russia or something. I mean, it's reaching the threshold of ultra over-the-top creepy.
Well, and I'll tell you that Rupert Murdoch, and I know you know Jerry Corsi very well, when I was working closely with Jerry on this in the beginning, Jerry received information of what was going to happen to Rupert Murdoch, and I am watching it unfold. So this stuff is in a mix. These guys are planning things out. They are taking actions that have been designed months, years ago.
Yeah,
They're putting into play.
Exactly. I mean, I literally have no dirt on me. I don't even speed anymore. And we've got bureaucrats and harassment I don't get into on air coming out of the woodwork all of a sudden. It's exactly what the head of WorldNet Daily said, Joseph Farrell, last year. Because I never got persecuted like this by Bush, and I was critical of him. I mean, people do not understand this is a criminal operation. And I don't know, you don't want to prejudice yourself probably agreeing with that. It's just that I'm getting to the point where, well, getting back to the birth certificate, going over it, going over this criminal complaint, what's the greatest hits of this document that people should know about and where this is going?
Well, you have a document that's comprised of 9 layers, and what it was really designed to do, the intent of it is to deceive. The intent of this document was to fool the unsuspecting public, to give you a document, and I do believe it was a precursor to Jerry Corsi's book, Where's the Birth Certificate? I believe they were concerned that book was going to come out, and they launched this document. But what this really says is, we don't really care what we show you. We're just going to show you something, and we're going to expect you to believe it. And if you look into his narrative, that's everything you've been fed. You see photographs, you're told these are the players. You see a photograph, you're told this is where I was or this is who I was sitting with, and you're expected to believe this. But when you start looking into some of those photographs themselves have been digitally altered. So everything about this is a facade. When you try to work the background of this individual, the trail goes cold. You can't find certain information. Certain information has either been now scrubbed or it's been locked away where you can't get to it. The fate of this birth certificate coming out the way it did, if they had flattened this document, probably the only argument would have been the fonts, and it would have gone nowhere, because every document examiner tells you, we can't tell you that unless we see an original. Our document examiner, who happens to be a court-certified 20 years in business, actually worked for Perkins Coie as a certified document examiner. This is the law firm that represents Obama on every one of these issues.
Wow.
Going to be difficult for them to overcome that. And when he tells you it is a 100% fabrication, you can take that to the bank. It's a 100% fabrication. So the implications to this are huge. And the reason why I don't really think that this was some kind of joke is the penalties for this under U.S. code, under U.S. statute, they're up to 20 years in prison. The manufacture, the display, the passing on of this kind of document, you're looking at some serious jail time. Now, you go back into the way this document was released, and they set up Mr. Obama with plausible deniability.
And it was done clearly in response to Jerry Corsi's book coming out the next week. I mean,
I do believe that.
Well, it was so obvious, and the media was all poised to attack and slander and say the book had been recalled when it wasn't. You could see a clear psyops. You don't do that against something that is a fraud. Right. You only act like that when you're scared to death.
Exactly, and I really do believe it was a preemptive strike trying to neutralize that book. And as Jerry could attest to, because we received the same information, it was not 24 hours after the release of this birth certificate, mainstream media, Fox News, nobody would talk about this issue anymore. And I have individuals, and I cannot divulge who they are for fear of their losing their occupation, in that genre that told me straight out, we were threatened. If we talk about this any longer, we're going to be fired.
Oh, I talk to press all the time that get threatened. They're told point blank, don't even criticize Obama.
So you don't have a free press anymore. When you don't have a free press, how do you vet a president? This man has never been vetted. This man has never gone through the ringer of being vetted. You know, and with Sheriff Arpaio, it's kind of like a joke in his office. I say, you know, Sheriff, he can't pass the background check to be the janitor in your jail.
Well, that's what I want to talk about when we come back. I've read a lot of history, and I've read a lot of Cold War stuff, and the only time I've seen backgrounds with people, to use a fiction account, it's like No Way Out with Kevin Costner, the only time you've got backgrounds this shaded and different things is when it is a sleeper cell foreign infiltrator. Now he could be a corporate infiltrator, whatever he is, but I've never seen somebody that has a Manchurian Candidate cutout. And you only see this with somebody that is an operative of something. And so it's really scary because I didn't really get into the birth certificate thing and cover it until I saw that fake. And then I said, oh, my gosh, this is all real. Mike Zullo is our guest. Stay with us. Well, we got the head of the cold case posse. Went out there in 2005 to help, investigate for Sheriff Arpaio all these stacks of murders. And I'd love to get you on sometime for like 2 hours on the nightly news just to talk about all the other cases you've been on, because it's so interesting about digging through cold cases and going after, stuff that other people have given up on. But you look at this. We were talking during the break about the fact of, hey, you better get life insurance, vice versa, and the type of stuff that goes on, because people don't know how real this is until you get the harassment. But I was saying during the break, I think we see the takeover happening. You were like, yeah, no, it's happening right now with the persecution of the press and the not caring. I mean, where do you think this country's going?
I'm afraid to think about that. I think we are at a critical point, and I think you are seeing, and I think you've said it before, people are starting to wake up, but they got to pick up the pace. I mean, we have some really bad problems. I mean, you have situations here where you could almost look at it as the police are becoming an extension of this. There are rights being violated all over the place. Constitution is meaning nothing. The whole incident down in Florida right now, man is demonized for carrying around in the chamber of a 9mm. That's no different than a guy having a 5-shot revolver. There's rounds in the chamber. It's
exactly.
Different. But this is what they do. They take it and they start with these themes and they keep perpetuating these as if they're truths, and they're not. They're fables. So we're in a really difficult place, and I think the battle is really for the mind, because if they can convince you of things, they could give you scenarios where you have to give up your rights and slowly give up your rights. We all know what the Founding Fathers said about that.
And they just announced now the CIA is going to domestically engage in propaganda covertly.
That's what I heard.
I mean, they're just putting it all out now. It's like, yeah, we'll arrest you and disappear you. Yeah, we'll kill you. What do you think about Michael Hastings' car blowing up? He says, I'm going on the run. I've got something that's going to bring him down. The FBI's visiting, and it turned out I've talked to the family off record, so they all got visited. And the FBI's like, we didn't visit anybody. And then the car blows up. The engine goes the opposite direction.
Well, I haven't had any information on that except what I've been told. And what I'm told is it looks like the automobile came and rested upon that tree.
Yes.
That there was no real front-end damage. So that makes it very difficult for me to think how a complete engine goes 350 feet the other way. I mean, something happened there, especially that he was making those kinds of telephone calls. My bigger concern is, like Breitbart. Breitbart, he had something other than what we've been shown.
Oh, he said it's going to bring him down.
And
it's the biggest thing ever.
And that's never surfaced. So,
well, isn't it a telltale when he's been dead 45 minutes and somebody in the hospital says no foul play, and then the coroner dies of arsenic poisoning? The guy that did his body.
I know, they're things that it's very difficult. From our business, we work in facts and evidence and proof. So for us to speculate is dangerous, but I will tell you, that's strange.
Well, when it starts piling up.
It does. It does, and when it starts piling up like that, all of a sudden, when something's a coincidence, you get a onesie or a twosie, not 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Those aren't coincidences anymore. Somebody is doing something on purpose. Something is happening here. Something's been orchestrated.
Exactly. If you had one hit and run out in the country of, say, an old lady, okay, hit and run, but if you had 5, well, we've got a serial killer.
Exactly.
I mean, it's obvious.
It's obvious. It becomes obvious. And there are things that happen in these situations where you could almost mirror them in other ones. There's always the precursors. Who says what? Who says he's going to do this? And all of a sudden he disappears. So you have to be mindful of that. But, this is real. This is not a fake game that's being played here. And that birth certificate, that is nothing more than an error. They released that in error. And I think the American people have the right to know who their president is and where he was born.
One of our reporters, Gigi Arnett, went out to L.A. and actually went to the tree. It's barely damaged. We just showed some footage of it. And then Nomi Prinz, who lives out there, also a journalist, she said she went and looked at it the day after, and it was barely even scratched. And that's what the photo showed as it came to rest. The witnesses all said it blew up in the middle of the road. So if my car blows up like that, I want an investigation.
I would think so. And what's great about that, eyewitness testimony, you could have 5 people witness the same accident, and they always see something different. They're never 100% in sync with each other. But the main event usually is. And when you've got witnesses, more than one, telling you this thing blew up before it hit the tree, you could take it to the bank. It blew up before it hit the tree.
I described it as a jackknife with an 18-wheeler. That's different, but basically it went up in the air and then flew over up against the tree, and the engine shot the other direction. I'd have to have a demolitions expert on, but That almost sounds like a bomb on top of the engine because it would blow down, blowing the engine out towards the back, and then the car. And that's all kinetic. I guess you'd have to talk to a physicist.
Yeah, I'm not the guy that does that. You know, our explosive experts may have a different opinion, but
sure. But if you hit a tree, the engine doesn't blow out the back.
It doesn't blow out the back. No, and you have to hit it with some force to move it that far too, and you would have such front end damage on that vehicle, such damage to that tree. I mean, the tree is a tree, but it's wood. It's gonna be damaged, especially with that kind of impact. And if there is, like they say, nothing there, that's a problem. That's a problem.
Unbelievable. Let's come back and get more into this fraudulent birth certificate that you get out of a Cracker Jack box and how we turn this country around with Mike. We'll be right back. Stay with us. We'll also give you the Cold Case Posse website on the other side. All right, I'm going to take some calls. They're all over the map. David, Nick, Ryan, Ernest, John, everybody after Mike, Zullo, and myself sit here and have some time and talk about other issues. MCSO.org, and that redirects to MCSOCCP.org, and that is the Criminal Enforcement Special Services Cold Case Posse out of Arizona. And there's a lot of important things on that site, and it's also supported outside of the Sheriff's Department funding mechanism. So tell us a little bit about the Cold Case Posse and how people can support it.
The Cold Case Posse is a separate organization, if you will. It's a 501(c)(3). Our mission is to voluntarily help the Sheriff's Office, and we are in service to the Sheriff himself. Everything that we do, especially in this investigation, cannot be supplemented financially by the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. That's what actually enabled this investigation to happen, because if Sheriff Arpaio had to use taxpayer dollars, they would have been on him in a minute to shut it down. So everything that we do, every trip that I take, every place that I go, we have to pay for it, is pay for it out of donated funds. So, you know, any donation, $5, $10, it all.
Absolutely. And tell us about this criminal complaint. What's going on with this case in Alabama?
Alabama was actually an elections case that was done way before we got involved with the Alabama thing. What happened over there is, I guess, Judge Moore, the Ten Commandments judge, has got this now in the Supreme Court. And the Alabama Democratic Party put in what's called an amicus brief, a friend of the court brief, and they attempted to put forth accusations against the evidence that was introduced by Attorney Larry Klayman in this case regarding the birth certificate. So Mr. Klayman had called me up and he asked me if I would do him a favor and put together a rebuttal document, an affidavit about the investigation, what I could tell him at this point. And that's what I did. I believe that's about 30 pages, 100 some odd points of interest are in there. And I think it would behoove everyone who's watching this that has an interest in this, read this. This is a sworn affidavit that I submitted to a superior court. That means I could be held liable for perjury.
Sure.
Anything in here.
And then what's this criminal complaint I'm hearing about?
Well, the criminal complaint, we're trying to put together a criminal case, trying to bring about a criminal complaint. The problem with this is, you know, this has only come to us 21 months ago, and to everybody it seems like an eternity. But when you're trying to put together information like this to bring forth these kind of charges, you have normally the assistance of other law enforcement authorities, especially federal authorities. We don't have that in this. We can't call up the FBI and ask them for help.
No, you're having to go through hell just to get each little piece.
Every piece, and everything takes time. And
everything takes money.
Money and time. And what I have to do is, you know, even like I think I told you earlier, you were the first video I ever saw of anything with this, and you guys were taking apart the document. Well, every step that you did, I have to ×3 go get that analyzed to make sure it's correct. And then we could put that into our report and use this information.
Well, that was just our quick analysis of it, dealing with videos, dealing with Photoshop, dealing with documents. We have some folks that have worked in documents, and we just knew when they said, oh, it's always in layers. It's not in layers unless it was originally in layers, meaning it's a made-up document. It'd be one layer. It'd be the image of the document, and then we saw the fonts and all of it and just said, this looks really suspicious. Were we accurate?
Yeah, you were accurate, very accurate. Especially the layering thing. You're going to have people try to put forth theories that the layering could be done because of automated processes and software. Well, we have extensively researched out. We put this document through 1,200 computerized tests, trying to get a replication of the Obama document, and you can't do it.
So they drop the ball massively, and we do that all the time when we're doing an article and we think it's right, but we publish it and then it doesn't all go up, or there's a problem, or all of it, you know, and we're not doing fraud, it's just a bunch of articles and documents. It'll get scrambled, and then one time we had a bunch of traffic to the site, we couldn't get it down to put up the right one for like 2 hours, and people thought we put out a messed up document on purpose. But again, with this, they just jumped the gun, or what happened?
Well, I can't tell you what exactly happened there. What we know is this, that document sat in a Mac computer 20 minutes before it was uploaded to the White House website server in a program called Preview. And that's of a particular interest to us.
Because it has timestamps?
Yes, but Preview has a capability of erasing what's called metadata from other programs. So the other programs that were used to create that document, they suspected or thought that it was going to erase all that information, and all you're left would be is Preview and the PDF file itself. Our forensic experts were actually able to go in and find remnants of metadata that then told us what other programs were in fact used.
And for folks that don't know, it's just like photos on a card that get wiped. You can put them into a program that actually resurrects them.
Resurrects it. And so we know how the document was put together. We know what processes were done to put the document together.
That's in this document. Break down for folks that aren't experts in this, basically what was done.
Basically, the document started itself, like I said, as a computer file. What they did is they took other source documents. Now, you have to realize they took other birth certificates, real ones, scanned them into a computer, and then systematically took information from different documents to create the PDF image that everybody saw released when the president released it. They painstakingly lifted date stamps. They painstakingly lifted words and letters on words in a cut and paste fashion to lay this upon layer to give you an impression of a complete document when it was done, even going as far as replicating the green safety paper computerized. So they make it look to you as if this is real, but it's not. And when you take apart those layers, you could actually take those layers, turn them on and off, and you can see exactly what was moved.
Why didn't Obama or his people just go to the CIA that are experts in making documents fake that you can't even tell?
I'm thinking that this was done on a lower level than that. Let me say this. I am concerned that the person that may have put this document together for them may have been, and for lack of a better word, I mean no disrespect to nobody, where if something were to happen to that person,
Sure. You want to keep this close to your vest because this is blackmailable if you have an agency do it. That's why they always create corporations, private groups outside of it, so they can even keep that secret from the government.
Yeah. And you make something happen to that one individual that put it together, nobody's going to pay any attention to it.
So we should be looking, and I know that's what Dr. Corsi's been doing, at people in and around the White House that might have been falling down, hitting their heads.
Look at everybody. I read the paper every day looking to see if something happened to somebody. We have some people of interest, and we're keeping tabs on them. But this is, I think, something that started out very small, but has grown now.
Sure. How dumb would you have to be if they come to you and go, hey, you're good at Photoshop and have done some documents. Cut this up for us. I mean, you've got to know with a mafia like this, if there's ever a problem, you're going to be sleeping with the fishes.
Well, people do things and don't realize it. You know, first of all, if you got a big chunk of money or it's to help, you know, the man that you wanted to put in that White House, you know, people do things for the sake of just doing them. It's very strange to me. You know, but a lot of times people don't look at the other side.
Well, it's peer pressure.
Peer pressure, not knowing there's always another side to the coin. You know, if somebody's asking you to help them do something that may not be 100% legitimate, you know, you got to ask yourself why.
Shifting gears into the kind of stuff we have to deal with, because I guess you use the communist term, but from a libertarian perspective, fellow travelers, you deal with a lot of, you were telling me stuff with the phone and harassment and things. Everybody does this, you know, trying to expose what's happening. But I think you made the point that you can clearly see they're going for it all. I mean, there's the feeling of, wow, nobody's stopping them. Everybody's scared and intimidated. They're going to go all the way. Can you elaborate on, just from your research and being, you know, in and around government and a detective from New Jersey, talking to other colleagues in law enforcement and people, are people as creeped out as I am or as creeped out as you are?
I don't think they are. I mean, people that have started to pay attention to this, yes. I think the scandals with the IRS, that's gotten people's attention. I don't even think they realize the severity of that. But when you have an incident like Benghazi and you can't get a special committee together to investigate that, there's a big problem.
That's blackmail.
Yeah, and people that are in law enforcement realize that that's a big problem. Fast and Furious, there are still people being shot with those weapons. And when you
a police chief last week.
Yes, and when you have an email that says we're going to use this to attack the Second Amendment, I think there's some statutes in U.S. code that talk about that.
Yeah, that's false flag. That's a frame up. I mean, that's premeditated racketeering. I don't.
And it's here, and it's being done, and you know, it's almost hiding in plain sight, if you will.
Exactly. I've studied history, and that's the point. When a Hitler, when a Stalin, when a Mao can get away with anything, it always just, it's a criminal culture where all their minions now can't get in trouble. I mean, these guys are like invincible if we don't take them down. How do we, how do we stop them?
You know, I don't know if I have the answer to that question. I know that the upcoming elections are going to be very important, and I think that people are going to have to pay mind to. You don't want lip service anymore. You want to know what that candidate's going to do when you put them in there, because you don't need any more of this. You need people that are going to have the backbone to want to get to the bottom line and the answers to these things that have been happening and are willing to take the steps to prevent it from happening in the future. And I think, you know, our biggest problem right now, Alex, our voices are silenced. Our voices are silenced. If it wasn't for Steve Stockman, I don't know where we would go with this. I mean, that's one man standing up. He is going to need your support if he does what I believe he's going to do.
Yeah, do people get what we're going through? I'm not asking for people to go, oh, you're a hero. I'm asking for them to support us because I have a compulsion to stand up against bullies my whole life. I'm not even some good guy. I just instinctively get angry about it. And everybody thinks, oh, we'll just go along, it'll be okay. No, then the dam breaks, the corrupt take over everything, the society collapses. We've got to have people stand up and exactly support people when they go and do the right thing.
You have to. And right now I think you're seeing, you know, when you see the Republicans turn on the younger Republicans, or calling them wingnuts or whatever they've been calling them lately. You know,
Karl Rove.
Yeah, yeah.
They're scared of the real Tea Party people.
Yes.
So they've all got them surveilled. They know Steve Stockman's good.
Yeah.
They know Rand Paul's good. They know that Cruz is good, Ted Cruz. They know. That's why they've got the Republicans and Democrats circling the wagons. They've had internal tapes, as you know, a month ago come out of Biden to millionaire donors going, we got to do something about these real Tea Party people. We got to go after them. Because there's the answer.
Right. There's the answer, and you know what it is? It's people that are based in the Constitution. You know, that's the thing that's dying in this country more than anything else. It's our Constitution. You go back, and I remember growing up in New Jersey, you know, that's basically a Democratic state, and we grew up fine. You know why? Because we may have differences from Republican to Democrat, but we had the Constitution, and that was the thing that held us together. They are eroding that. People don't even understand it anymore. They don't even know what's in it.
Well, they're abolishing it.
They are.
I mean, they've got a wrecking ball. They've already torn like half of it out. And now the second half's going to go faster than the first half.
That's the concern. And I think you can see that this is escalating. You know, you have the Justice Department now jumping into whatever happened down there in Florida. All of a sudden we have a civil rights violation. You know, 10 years ago, that would just be what it is. A man defending his life. He was afraid for his life. Now we have a civil rights violation. I don't understand the thinking anymore. It's, if we don't get what we want in one court, we'll just find another court. We'll bring you through another court. We'll just do whatever we want to do until we railroad you. And to me, that looks like that's what's going to happen down there again. You know, you have to start to worry about that. You know, it's pretty clear when you have, for lack of a better word, a lynching. And to me, that's what is going on.
Speaking of that, I want to get to some callers on this subject, but people need to go to MCSOCCP.org. That's the Criminal Enforcement Special Services Cold Case Posse. In fact, there's a shorter website. It's MCSO.org, MCSO.org, and donate today. And Lieutenant Mike Zullo is here with us today. And again, ladies and gentlemen, they're going to destroy everything. And I've been real critical of the Republicans because they're a mafia too, especially the old guard. But I'm telling you, this 2014 election coming up, I'm going to say this now. The Democratic mafia is going to take completely over. They're going for it all right now. You've got to vote Republican. And I've just got to that point realizing that you've got to vote for Tea Party people, real Tea Party people. The mainline Republicans have tried to take it over. They haven't been able to. Now they're trying to destroy it. You got to go after the Republicans that are working with the Democrats. And you've got to vote for real Tea Party Republicans. You've got to run yourself. We've got to block, because if they end up getting the House and they've got the trifecta, it's over. I mean, I'm telling you, they're going to bring in, they've already billed him as the new Lincoln, who's going to wage war and basically demonize anybody that's a constitutionalist as like some type of Confederate. That's the branding I already see.
Well, you know, and here's something that was just alarming to me. I've had the opportunity now to visit several congresspeople in Washington, and I've heard this more than once. Republicans say they have no voice. They have no microphone in Congress. Now, if they're telling me that, if they don't have a voice, you don't have a voice.
Well, that's it. I mean, if the Republicans were running everything and doing this, I would say vote Democrat. Or I'd vote for something else. It's a separation of powers. It's we've got, I think that's why they're so arrogant, is that they just have gotten away with anything. What do you call that in criminology, where they get emboldened, or what's the...
You know, I don't remember the term. I know exactly what you're talking about, though. I don't remember the term, but they get so brazen about it because they feel like they're untouchable. They
untouchable is the word.
Untouchable. They get to a place where they can just do anything and know that you'll sit down like a lapdog and take it.
And I think what you said with the police, because so many police are still the bedrock of this country, but then other departments are going crazy. It's that rolling downhill, that arrogance, so that they're trying to recruit people that'll do whatever they're told.
Yes. Yes, they are. And, you know, you have bigger problems with this, too, is they start to desensitize you in areas that normally you would be affected by, you would react to. And they do it by, well, I think you have a video coming out here. It is psyops. It is ways of keep perpetually gaslighting you, if you will. Keep changing your altered.
So you don't know what's going on.
You don't know what's going on.
I study this 18 hours a day. I'm obsessed with it. My wife's like, do you ever stop? You know, because I can't get out of it, because I realize it's a death struggle against tyranny. This is real. My life's on the line. This is real tyranny in America. There's no debating it. Right. And now it's like I'm even more upset because it's everything. I've been validated, and you've been by all the stuff coming out, and people are like, aren't you feeling good? I'm like, no, I'm not feeling good. Now they're not even in trouble when it's all admitted.
Right, right. And, you know, you look at something as, and I don't want to minimalize it, but you look at something as simple as his birth certificate, and I can count on one hand the amount of news stations that have said they even question this, versus the amount of times you're told you wear a tinfoil hat, this could never happen. You know, they do these things. Psyop. They plant them in the public's mind. And it's easier to believe the lie, Alex, than it is to believe the truth.
For folks that don't know what gaslighting is, it's a famous film, but it's based on real things that happen. It's like Stockholm Syndrome. There's been famous cases where a pimp will abuse and punch a woman in the nose, and she's bleeding. He goes, I didn't punch you, you're crazy. And someone that feels powerless, their mind will trick them, and they'll go, I did that to myself? Now people that aren't weak-minded, we go, how does that work? It's like hypnotism works on the weak-minded. America's hypnotized. I mean, that's really it. Yeah. How do you get them out of that?
Hypnotized, desensitized.
Yeah.
Well, they made a fatal mistake with the IRS thing. I think that wakes up a lot of people because that is something that people feel. And they're all afraid of the IRS. So that kind of woke them up a little bit.
And imagine going to people and saying, what do you pray at your church for the IRS?
I can't even believe that.
We're going to come right back with your phone calls, a little bit of overdrive, and then he's going to be... How long do you have till you got to get out of here?
I have as much time as you need.
Because I want to do a nightly news interview, and I want to do... and I'll probably put you on with one of my reporters, because then you'll get a word in edgewise. We'll be right back. Stay with us. All right, folks, I'll do about 5-10 minutes of overdrive the next hour to take the calls that are on the board on a host of subjects. But you really need to go to mcso.org and donate today. That's not why he's here. Notice he didn't even ask me to promote that or talk about trying to fund Sheriff Arpaio's separate group that he heads up, not just investigating the birth certificate, but a lot of other murder cases. You name it. Mike Zullo is our guest, mcso.org. But we were talking about mysterious deaths of Breitbart and people like that, and Hastings, and it's how the media is like, you shouldn't look at that. It's a conspiracy theory to even look at it. That just shows how they'll turn the other way if a bunch of people start getting killed.
I know, and
that's what you said off air, yeah.
Look, without the media, without a real outlet for people to hear and get truthful reporting, they are then ignorant of facts. They are ignorant of pertinent stories. And how could you expect someone who's ignorant of anything to, number one, take an action, come to their own conclusion, or know the difference between truth and deception? Ignorance is a killer. And until we figure out a way to change that, we are going to have a major, major problem in this country coming to any conclusion as a united body.
I don't want to have confrontations with the system because I get the average person and it's just brainwashed like the general public. But when the government's training and buying billions of bullets and 7,000 armored vehicles and all the rest of this, but you see the public buying 100 million guns since Obama got in and we know of, and everybody says, I don't trust it. People instinctively know this is a tyranny. I mean, I guess that's the last check is that. And I guess if it gets too bad, I hate to think what's going to happen.
Well, you know, Sheriff Arpaio has a tank. Sheriff Arpaio has a 50 caliber machine gun.
But he's elected locally.
But he's never going to use that stuff against his own people. And that's the difference here. You have to tell me, what is DHS? And
he needs it down there in that area. Yeah.
He does need it down there. What is DHS going to do with that kind of equipment? Who are they going to fend off? We have a military to protect the borders. Who are they going to use that against? Why are they acquiring that?
Well, they admit it's for the Tea Party. Their own manuals all say returning veterans, gun owners, libertarians, in the fetters, anybody who's really an American. I mean, let's face it. We're nothing special. We're just Americans. I mean.
You know, I say this to a lot of people now. What is the privilege that you have being a United States citizen, being a natural-born United States citizen? What are the privileges? Because you can't tell me that we have any, because you can just come over a border and get them here. You don't have to be a citizen to get these privileges.
You get almost more rights when you're not a citizen.
And so I know when my grandparents came here, they came here, went through the naturalization process, and became United States citizens. And because it meant something, you gained something. You gained those constitutional protections. Those are given to people now regardless of how they come over. Sheriff Arpaio, when he does those immigration sweeps and things that they criticize him about, let me tell you something. I've worked with those deputies, human smuggling deputies. I watched those deputies put their lives on the line, taking down coyotes, bringing over human traffic from Mexico, defending and protecting people from another country.
Most police just roll over now and take the money. Oh. I mean, look at what they've done in Mexico to the system. I mean, do we really want Mexico to collapse into us? This is madness.
Well, you know, the whole premise that I think is it's just one big open border. I think that's what everybody wants. And they're giving us the ruse.
Look at the signs up to 70 miles into Arizona saying, don't go into this area controlled by Mexican drugs. I
stood right next to those. And you look at...
That's the feds planting a flag saying drug cartels took this over.
Yeah, and they're facing inland from the border. They're facing to America telling you don't go in here. It's the United States property.
And then next it'll be 100 miles. Yeah. And then 200 miles. Yeah. And then 300 miles. We're going to come back, take a few calls. Mike Zullo, amazing interview. Stay with us, Infowars.com. Mike Zullo, head of the cold case posse, a detective, is here with us. I want to take a few calls because we've got to end this transmission. I apologize, some folks have been holding. But you just made a powerful statement during that break. But please say that again.
Well, we were talking, and I want to leave the impression, look, not everything is lost, Alex. You know, America right now is in deep. But I believe in the end, America is going to prevail. And I believe that the majority of Americans are God-fearing, Constitution-loving people. And I think to our benefit, we are slow to pick up arms. And I hope it never comes to something like that. We need to defend our Constitution now, bring back our liberties. And the only way you do it is you're going to have time in 214 and 216 to make the changes. And you have to get engaged on who am I going to elect and what is their podium? What are they standing on? What are they telling me they're going to do?
Absolutely.
And when they don't do it, you call them out on it and you change them out. Term limits would have solved a lot of this in Congress. If we had term limits, you couldn't get dirt and blackmail people because they're here and gone. So I think that this next 2 election cycles, and everybody says very important, no, these are critical. These are critical.
Matt Drudge says everything is 2014.
I think he's right. I think I never heard that from him, but I think he's right. I think it all hinges on 2014.
And it's so sick that this Democratic mafia is so bad. I've never been lesser of two evils. But it's clear they are making their move with Obama. The power structure behind things, they're making their move.
Yeah, and you could see, like you said earlier, it's an escalation. It's happening. There's so much news out there that it hits you, and it hits you so fast. And they are training Americans to settle for a 45-second to 1-minute news flash, some YouTube video, and you think you understand it all, and they bang you with something.
Exactly. And see, I've gone through this for a long time, but I don't know if I can say it on air, but I mean, I get the phone calls, and they don't do it a lot now because they know it doesn't really work. It makes me work even harder, and gets my wife upset, and she gets behind me even more. But, you pick up the phone, and you're making a call, and somebody's breathing on it. You said that's happened to you.
It's happened on my cell phone numerous times.
And, I mean, they want you to know. People go, oh, you're hearing beeps and breathing. That's not how wiretaps work. No, they want you to know they're sitting there on your phone.
My cell phone once, I was driving down the street. I'm going to make a telephone call, and not even in the ringing stage yet, and I hear what sounds like a police radio come over my cell phone. I thought I had my radio with me, and I look in the car. It's not in the car. It was coming over my cell phone, and then it clicks off. Then into the call, the breathing. One sounded like someone sneezed, that there was nobody else on the phone but me. It was just really some weird stuff.
Well, no, wait till they tell you. Because they'll always wait till a family member's in the hospital or something. and this has happened to me and my wife. That's when you really know how evil they are. Yeah. And they call up and go, your husband's got me pregnant. My wife's like, I know this is bull. That's right. I hope your dad dies in the hospital right now.
Oh, God. I mean, my wife's not going to fall for that.
Yeah, but I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Because her dad had just gone to the hospital. Yeah. And they did it. I mean, it's like they're listening. And they wait till that emotional moment trying to make you melt down.
Wow.
I promised to do these calls. We'll do one more segment overdrive, 12 minutes. How's that sound? And then we'll go shoot for Obama deception. I don't want to wear you out here, but I get the idea you can talk quite a bit. Man, at least we're not buying the propaganda. At least we're alive. Do you really feel alive doing the right thing, though?
It's taxing. I mean, I'm sure you know that. It's taxing. It's something that you know in your heart you have to do. And it would be so easy not to.
It's a compulsion, though.
It is.
Could you control yourself and not do the right thing?
No. I have to do the right thing. I have to. I have to do what I believe in my heart is right, what I could lay my head on the pillow and know at least I tried to do something with it. I may not succeed, but at least I know I gave it everything I could give it.
Well, that's powerful, but it's like a good slavery to doing the right thing, because I am not in control of myself. I mean, I realize, and it's almost embarrassing to say, they could have guns to my kids' heads, and I might BS them and say, okay, I'll sell out, but I know I really wouldn't. I would turn around. I mean, I can't sell out. And that is a really weird feeling. We'll be right back with the final segment in Overdrive with our guest. We're going to give you the website, mcso.org. Get behind the Cold Case Posse. It's run by a great guy. It's great meeting him in person. We'll be right back. Sheriff Arpaio, and then we're going to calls, gets demonized a lot. And I don't agree with him on everything he does, but I'm usually seeing it through a media filter. But now I know a lot of people I really respect, like Sheriff Richard Mack and so many others, that behind the scenes, I talk to people that are like know Arpaio and his neighbors, where he helps them change a tire 10 years ago, or is so friendly. And he comes off like a cartoon character, almost like a John Wayne type or something. But from what I've been told about him, that's really how he is. Is that accurate?
It is. I've gotten the privilege to know Sheriff Arpaio now for 2 years. I'm in his office all the time. And he is, number one, he's a cop's cop. He's a real human being. And the times I really appreciate it the most is when we're not talking business and we'll just be sitting there and we'll have a conversation. I mean, the man is brilliant. The man is a career law enforcement officer. He gets it. And he's one of the last of the old-time police officers. He's the rule of law kind of guy. You want him to stop enforcing something? Change the law. That's how he sees it. And they come down on him for enforcing the law. They try to make him erase this because he enforces the law. Let me tell you something about Sheriff Arpaio. He is an equal opportunity incarcerator.
Oh, I've seen that.
Doesn't matter.
But the state is collapsing. They put signs up 60, 70 miles in saying don't go into these areas. He's supposed to just throw up his hands and say, okay, illegals running drugs and stuff, you're above the law.
Well, that's what they would like him to do. That's something that he is not going to do. I mean, they've tried to stop him. They even have federal judges now trying to stop him. Look, I'm going to tell you something. Sheriff Arpaio, 52 years, you take this issue with this birth certificate, he wouldn't be having us doing what we're doing. He wouldn't stand out taking the position he's standing out. And if he didn't believe what we have is 100%, he's not going to throw away that career on this type of issue. He's not.
So it's the same thing. He knows it's right. He's got to do it.
He's got to do it. That's what he is about. This has to happen. This is what the law says. These are violators, and we have to do something about it. He doesn't selectively enforce. You can't.
Well, I always like it when I see the police arrest their own district attorney or the mayor drunk driving. I mean, that's good. And the mayor always says, you see it over and over again, you can't arrest me.
Yeah.
But then you learn about the cops that let him go.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of goes, it's just, I don't know. See, if I was a cop, I would let go a poor lady with 3 kids in the back who didn't have an inspection sticker out. I wouldn't let the mayor go. That's where I would have trouble, is writing tickets to people when their cars obviously out of inspection because they're going bankrupt. But then it just, I don't know how. It's a tough job. It's a tough job, and there's discretion when it comes to that, issuing summonses. But when it comes to driving under the influence, I mean, it's zero tolerance. I mean, or when it comes to shipping drugs in or whatever. I mean, that goes without saying. Yeah, and then the banks are involved in it. Let's take a few phone calls here today, folks. Thanks for holding. These will be all over the map. David in Missouri, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for taking my call. It's funny because a lot of the previous callers and also your guests now are kind of touching on the things I wanted to bring up, and that's racism, right? Since slavery, black people have been used as a beta test to push on the general public. And now, and even in your shows in the recent weeks, Alex, you've been talking about police oppression, right? Where the checkpoints where they're pulling people out of their cars and all this stuff. Well, that's been happening to black people in this country for years now. I was born in the late '60s, and in a little bitty small town. And
well, let me just say this: I think it's poor people, period, because. I've experienced, because generally you're going to have more crime in poor areas, and then poor people can't defend themselves, so bad police are going to get away with more. What is your take on, how much of the persecution of black folks in this country is real versus what the Democratic Party hypes up because they can't deliver all the free stuff they've claimed, so they just make it all about race? Well, I personally, my own personal view, I think a lot of it is real. I think a lot of it, has happened to some higher degrees in time periods than others. My own personal ideology about this is I can't look at that. I have to take you and deal with you based on your actions. Respect begets respect. Exactly. And the big issue is if you throw minority people, especially, in jail for little bitty reasons when they're young, they're going to be put in a college of crime. Yeah. I mean, I think that's part of the cycle, too. You would love to be able to go in there and change hearts and minds. I wish there was something that we can do to, and I don't want to say make them productive members of society. To me, that sounds so pompous. Make them better for themselves. Regardless of what color they are. I don't care. I don't care what you are. Look, everybody bleeds. Let me tell you something. I say this to a lot of people. If, God forbid, something was happening to your wife, some sinister thing was happening, would you care what the color of that cop was? To stop that madman? Well, it's the same thing I say. It's like when I look at children, I want to protect all of them. Yes, absolutely. I don't care what color they are. I mean, it doesn't matter. And so it transfers from there. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Everybody, we all bleed the same, brother. They have the same rights as I do. It's all red blood. That's how we're. That's how it works. That's how it works. To address this question, yeah, I believe there were, improprieties, if there's a way to say that, indiscretions and some very sinister acts at times. And I'm hoping that we're growing from that. I know that I can see it in my own children. They are brought up in a zero racial environment. They don't know the difference. Well, that's because people, that's more people that are Christians and people from the 60s and folks that are doing the right thing. But now people are seizing it to reverse it back. Yeah. And then you've got little kids that aren't thinking racially about things, but then they're having it forced down on them that they're racist because they're 5 years old and they're white. So do you see what I'm saying, David?
Well, or they're just being exposed to it. My kids are biracial. I'm black. My wife is Colombian, but very, very fair skinned. They have no idea what it is. They have no idea what they don't see that color. But I'm sure when they're old enough and they're driving down the street or whatever, and they have a little bit more melanin in their skin, they're going to be treated differently.
Sure. Listen, I got to jump to other callers, but I hear what you're saying. But then it's not just the racism. Then it enters in the statistics of the poverty, whatever's happened in the culture, of the higher crime rates in those areas and those communities, which is a cycle. Then people get put in jail for no reason, because statistically there's more crime in this area. And then they come out basically forced into a criminal system because now you can't get a job because you've got a criminal record. I mean, we've all talked about that cycle. Here's what I want to say. It's become a political diversion from all the other corrupt things that are going on to obsess over things that are a lot better than they used to be. That's my point. Let's go real fast here. John in Florida, thanks for holding her on the air.
Alex, I definitely want to say it's an honor to finally get to speak with you. You've been an inspiration to a lot of us in terms of creating our own radio shows and getting the word out. My question, my statement to you was, down here in Florida, they have been playing on the race a lot, and it has led to a lot of civil unrest. But recently, I've realized that it wasn't about the racial split. Now on all the news, it's all about the gun laws. It's all about the stand your ground. So
no, exactly. They're going to racialize, I've already seen this, owning guns. That's what Fast and Furious was. Gun owners are killing Mexicans, or you know, that's the talking point. Exactly. Go ahead.
Absolutely. And what I was going to ask you is, what angle do you think they're going to take with Aaron Hernandez, the New England Patriots star, which is essentially the same thing as George Zimmerman?
They're already saying he's a white Hispanic who killed a black guy, but nobody's buying it. They know it was all a bunch of thugs. And, I mean, if you just look at that whole culture in the NFL, that's another thing. Why do we allow NFL people to act like thugs? They should I mean, our role models, are you concerned about them trying to make role models thugs now?
Yeah, I think, what are the role models today?
They're thugs.
They're thugs. They're thugs, and that's being done by design.
And I don't care if they're black, white, Hispanic. They all act like a bunch of thugs on the street now. Because I'm going to tell you, if I'm in a gas station and see some white thug guys, I immediately, you know, get threatened. Black, Hispanic. I don't think that's a black guy. I think that's a thug if they're acting like a thug. You can automatically see a black guy, clean cut, nice. Hey, how you doing, buddy? Polite. You can see a white guy, clean cut, nice. Hey, buddy, how you doing? But you see a thug, you know, the wife beater, the whatever, bugging their eyes out at you. That's the problem, is the thug culture, the thug life.
Right, and they want to use this. You know, if you look at the unfortunate circumstances down in Florida, you know, in our Constitution, you are granted the right to a defense. You're presumed innocent, and you can have a defense. Well, that doesn't give the prosecution the right to come up with a fable or create something out of thin air.
Skip this break. We're going to the bottom of the hour. Go ahead.
That isn't there. You have to look at what happened down there. That was a crime. Now, following him, not following him, you know, that could.
Do you think he was stupid to follow him?
I think he was stupid. I wouldn't have done it, but I could change it. What would happen if this was your house, your wife was home, this guy had a real intent to do bodily...
The neighbor had been home invaded.
Right.
See, that's the problem with crime going up. You get charged up. Yeah. That's why you can judge cops, but they're charged up all day.
Right. Well, but taking it to that example, if he stopped an individual that was going to do such a grievous offense...
Be a hero.
He'd be a hero. But this turns into a fight. It turns into a fight.
Well, the media made it one.
Yeah.
Don't you think? I mean, there is reasonable suspicion. If a black guy would have killed a white guy he thought he was suspicious, I would have said reasonable suspicion. I mean, you don't send somebody to jail unless it's open and shut.
Well, you know, look, everybody's responsible for their actions. Just like Zimmerman, and more so because he was armed, well, so was Trevon, responsible for his actions. Everybody's responsible for their actions.
Well, the argument is he had a bag of Skittles, but all the witnesses are saying he attacked him. He climbed on top of him.
And they try to lose sight of that to turn it into an issue that they want to turn it into.
Well, I mean, here's the issue. When I was 17, I was pretty aggressive and stuff. And if I was walking through and, you know, somebody said, "What are you doing?" and came up to me, I'd probably say, "What the hell are you doing with a gun?" I mean, I can get that, but I wouldn't punch somebody.
Mm-hmm. Well, here, let's look at that same scenario. If this was a 110-pound female who was getting her head bashed into a curb and she shot this individual, this would not even be in a courtroom. This wouldn't even be happening. I
agree with the defense attorney that this wouldn't have been an issue if Zimmerman would have been black.
Most likely not. I hate to say that.
Who's at fault, the media for making it racial?
I think the media does a big part of it. They like to hop it up and make it racial, and you know this is going to be what the prosecution is going to use. They want to hit an emotion in you to cloud your judgment, cloud your thinking.
Well, what about Trayvon though? Because I look at the photos he put out himself with the grill and the thug look and all that. Those are his photos, and then you see the IT guy saying, you know, there's photos of guns, loot, all this stuff, and then that's what he supposedly got in trouble in for school and the burglary tool, and then that's being withheld from the defense. I mean, it's starting to really not look too good here.
Well, you know, look, the bottom line is this is a terrible thing no matter how you cut it. You have a young man who lost his life. That's a terrible thing. But when you're sitting in that jury box, you have to put the facts to the law. And that's what everybody has to just realize. You know, that statue of justice holding the scales got a blindfold on. You have to be blind to all these other factors. The actions either meet the law or they don't meet the law. And that's the only thing that these people could look at. So anything that's happening after this is being fueled for other political motivations.
That's right, and it's easy to Monday morning quarterback that jury, but when you're about to put somebody in jail for life, you're really going to look at the facts.
You have to.
I mean, I followed it some every day, seeing it in the news, but I mean, just looking at the prosecution, clearly hiding evidence. If the guy was Charlie Manson, he's got to walk, because you can't start cheating people even if you think they're guilty in a trial.
Well, and I don't know the particulars of Florida law. I know in some jurisdictions you cannot bring in prior criminal history into a case. So I don't know how that's going to play out down there. I don't know what their statutes call for. But the bottom line, you know,
well, they cut out the phone taken from his dead body had the gun and all the stuff on it. Recent photos. So the issue is they didn't give that to the defense. Their head IT guy was fired a few days ago for leaking it.
Right.
And he said, I'm not going to jail for lying about this.
Right. And again, I think there's some problems down there with the way they did things. Don't get me wrong.
Well, look at the police chief. He said that basically they were ordered to hand the case over.
I know. I heard that. I mean, that's what I was trying to allude to earlier. If we can't get what we want in this court, we'll just take him somewhere else and take him somewhere else until we get what we want.
But I get why Obama did that as a gangster and his controllers. If you're in trouble and all this stuff's going on, you send down to the Justice Department to stir up racial animus, because that's a diversion for you. While we're all fighting with each other, he wins. John, anything else?
No, man, I just basically wanted to say thank you for everything you do. And so far down here in Florida, it's kind of calm, but no question it's gun control being pushed.
Yeah, I mean, the White House is now saying, let's basically demonize guns and turn our guns in for Trayvon. He'll be the patron saint of victim disarmament.
That's been the ploy here for a lot of years, trying to figure out a catalyst to have that happen.
What do you think would happen in 6 months if they armed all the non-criminal background families in Chicago and taught them how to use the guns? I think you'd see a bloodbath of criminals being killed, and then the crime rate would plunge to almost nothing like it is in high gun areas.
I would agree. Every study points to every time you arm the people that the violent crimes go down, and precipitously they go down. Look, there's nothing wrong with having a good guy on the street with a gun. There just isn't. You know, in Arizona, we have the most liberal gun laws you could have. I mean, you don't even need a permit now to carry a concealed weapon. We treat everybody as if they're armed. That doesn't mean we treat you different. We just know it. We know that you have one. Even if you don't, we know that you have one. And we just deal with it accordingly. But there's no cop on the street that is ever afraid of a law-abiding citizen with a firearm.
Well, look at all the examples you never see in the news. I mean, they'll be local, where the cops are pinned down and the citizen from across the street shoots the bad guy.
And you won't see a lot of those out there. Or you'll hear in that news press that they're reviewing the case for possible charges against the citizen. Are you kidding me? Just about every statute in the country has coming to the aid of another individual in a fight for their life.
Well, exactly. The media tries to act like it was wrong.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
Or some guy breaks and enters, and the woman's on 911, and they go, don't shoot him, don't shoot him. And then she shoots him, and they go, well, they're looking at charges.
Yeah.
But, of course, they don't. But and it's not the police saying they're looking at charges. The media says, well, they're reviewing it, and they spin that to mean it's incredible.
Well, the last one that happened with that, the mother home with her child, and she shoots the guy as he's coming in the attic door or something like that, or the closet door. I mean, she only had 5 rounds, I believe. That's a case where I wish she had 15, because he crawled out and went down the street. That job wasn't finished, you know? So you can make a case for self-defense in today's time. It takes more than 1 or 2 bullets.
And you've got to have something to match whatever they're able to get.
Yes.
When you minimize the citizens, you're going to be law-abiding down to 1 round, 6 rounds. Like in Australia, it's 1 round. Well, the bad guys aren't going to follow the law.
You know, Alex, I had the privilege today. A gentleman took me down to see the Alamo, and they took me to that IMAX movie theater. And I watched that film for 48 minutes. And aside from everything else that film speaks to you about the bravery of these people, seeing what 1 round does, 1 round stops 1 person. And if it's a grazing wound, it stops nobody. 1 round's not going to cut it. 2 rounds aren't going to cut it. Today you get homes where doors are kicked in and 3 or 4 bad guys come in at the same time. You know, you're not going to do it with 3, 4, 5 shots anymore. You know, there's a reason why police officers are armed with high-capacity automatics today than like the day that's when I started, when we had a 6-round 357 Magnum. Cops started to lose the gun battles because the bad guys were outgunned. You know, they're outgunning us. So you have to look and keep everything into perspective. And in today's society, unfortunately, an armed citizen is the safest citizen.
Well, that's why a lot of people say, don't let the cops have, you know, semi-autos, 30-round, 100-round. No, fine, just let me have that. Because, I mean, obviously they need that because other people are going to have it. Don't restrict me. Just you go ahead and have whatever you want, because bad guys, again, are not going to follow the law. Let's talk to Ryan in Texas. He has a question about me, so I guess we'll take it. But go ahead.
Hey, Alex.
Hey, buddy, go ahead. Welcome.
Hey, I just wanted to say thank you for everything you do, and you're just a major role model for my life. I'm 19, about to turn 20, and been going organic since I've seen everything about your GMOs and everything. And just really wanted to ask you, like, how could I help out my community more? Like, how did you start off?
You can help out your community by studying history, common sense, and volunteering for the Salvation Army, being nice to your family, working hard, being a good person. Just being a good person makes the world better. People think we've got to all save the world overnight ourselves. Being a good person will do it. But then, you know, you'll get better as you go. Start a YouTube channel. Don't have to put your face up there. Put a world map up or whatever and talk about issues, get feedback, and be confident. Because so many good people think it's kind of like non-arrogant to not be confident acting. Be bold, because the bad guys are bold. And just get it. But start, I mean, people ask, what do you do? Really, it starts with being a good person. I mean, do you have any recommendations?
Well, I agree with that. I mean, look, you want to be a good person, you have to start acting like a good person. You have to do, and you know, it's that old Bible, you know, saying, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. You know, you have to be conscious of other people and where they're at. And whenever you're in contact with anyone, and just be respectful. It's that kind word that turns away wrath. Just be respectful. And people will come to appreciate you for that. And
that's what I'm working on I'm working on when somebody does something wrong to me, not getting mad right away.
Yeah, I have that issue too. And you know,
you were going to say something, interrupted? Go ahead.
You know, it just flew out of my head, brother.
But, I mean, you're saying that kind word diffuses things. That kind word does. And you know, when people start, you're going to find out you'll have a better influence with people. People will start looking to you. They'll start talking to you about certain things. And I'm going to tell you, and I've taken a lot of bad guys down to jail. And this is going to sound really strange. There's maybe a handful I didn't like, but when you start having some conversations with these people and some of them start telling you some of the things they went through, doesn't make an excuse for what they did. But boy, you really get a feeling for what life struggles they have to endure. And when you start to hear this, you'll start, with my opportunities, you get to hear the same kind of stories then repetitively. And you can find out, all right, this is where these issues are. And then maybe you could help find solutions to some of these problems like you're trying to do. Exactly, because so many low-level criminals are in a bad situation. They've been pushed into it. They don't even like it. That's why I hate the white-collar, really slick psycho ones. They're the ones that really know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. And they're running the show. They do. And you know, you have these other individuals that are out there, and a lot of it stems back to the family. You know? No, exactly. Fathers and mothers at home, 4 times more likely to not end up in prison. Yes. If you got a dad at home. So why is the media attacking the dad? It's destruction of the family. These are sick people. Mike Zullo, you're a really impressive guy in person. Great job with your cold case posse. You'll be back on the Nightly News tonight. Infowars.com, folks. Stay with us.